Harakiri, Thief, Apocalypto, Battle Royale, Les Samurai, The Red Shoes. What are the 100 greatest movies that you've never seen before? Let's break down our list on this episode.
What's up, movie friends? Welcome back to Raiders of the Lost Podcast, the ultimate film and TV podcast. And today, we're going to do a huge episode breaking down what we think are the 100 greatest films you've never seen. These are films from all over the world, made all across time, and they're incredibly special films in the world of cinema. If you've seen some of them, that's amazing. If you don't know what some of these are, we hope that this episode can get you interested in maybe watching them. These are incredible pieces of cinema and art, and I can't wait to break down this list. We got everything from the Coen Brothers to some samurai films to great French cinema, Italian cinema, things from the 40s and 30s all the way to contemporary times.
And future movies that have never been released.
Yes.
Just kidding. Because you said all over time. I
Yes.
mean, that technically counts the future, Anthony.
That's true, man. That's
So
true.
this, of course, I'm sure plenty of you have seen many movies on this list, but I'm sure that a lot of you will be able to add movies to your watch lists. And, you know, some of these movies I hadn't seen until recently, or I've only seen once or twice. Anthony's probably seen each one 46 times.
No.
But we're really excited to share this with you because as much as we love talking about the Alien Romulus movies and the biggest movies of the year and blockbusters, we also love smaller films, international films, independent cinema, and we really want to broaden everyone's palette out there and just give them new things to watch. I know everyone's always asks us regularly for recommendations. Film recommendations, people hit us up all the time. This is going to be a great list for you to go through for the next year or two to just bang out a bunch of movies that you may have never heard of.
And this is a list that's in order in terms of great, least great to the greatest. And even, I mean, at number 100 still, we're so excited to talk about. And we're going to talk about incredible filmmakers like George Lucas, like Wong Kar-wai, like Billy Wilder. I mean, there's so many amazing filmmakers. Almodovar is going to be all over this list. Rossellini, Fellini, incredible, the filmmakers on this list. And there's actually quite a few pretty contemporary films that we think you'd really love from all over the world of cinema. So let's get into this list. I can't wait to break these all down. And James, how about you take it away with the first one, number 100.
Number 100 on our list, this is going to be a long episode, guys, is
Get
the
comfy.
first film the Coen Brothers ever made. We have Blood Simple, which came out all the way back in 1984, starring Frances McDormand. They hung out together back in the day. Obviously, she's married to Joel, and they've collaborated many times since. They've all got Oscars together in different ways. And this is a really cool, highly stylized crime film that they made. It's really interesting, very gritty, great characters, and great suspense as well.
It's incredible world building as well. It's a small cast of characters. It's very small in scope. It's about a man who begins an affair with a married woman, and then they plot. He wants to kill her husband because he thinks she's he believes him to be an abuser. And what happens is that's just the starting catalyst of the story. What happens is unpredictable. It's shocking. And Blood Simple has one of the most surprising third acts I've ever seen in a film. It is just bonkers. It's insanely suspenseful, and it comes out of left field in the best way possible. It's their usual palette of violence, great metaphorical questions, as well as just grittiness and incredible performance from their cast. And also, in terms of world building, what I mean is the Coen Brothers, no matter what film they're making, where it takes place, what era it takes place in, who the characters are, you always feel as though it's authentically that place. And this is the first instance of that. Now, Joel is credited as the director, but Joel and Ethan made it together. They just weren't able to credit themselves as joint directors on the film. And it shows the mastery that they already had with this early feature of theirs. We couldn't recommend Blood Simple enough.
It's a good one. Great ending.
Oh, my God. What an ending.
Excellent ending.
Yeah.
Number 99 on our list.
Oh, sorry. We're not going to spoil any movies.
Of course
In case-
not. We
yeah.
want you all to watch
Yeah.
these. Why would we
Yeah.
spoil them, Anthony?
I'm just saying,
Why
not
would that even go through your head?
I'm just saying, we're not going to talk about, like, intense plot points because we don't
Yeah.
want to ruin any of the movies.
Anthony loves to spoil movies.
I know,
though.
sometimes
He'll
I
often
do.
spoil movies without even realizing he's spoiling movies.
Sometimes I do.
Number 99, we have a surfer skate movie from 2005.
Yeah, bro.
We have Lords of Dogtown starring Heath Ledger, directed by Catherine Hardwicke from the Twilight series. Why I think it was Christine. This is an awesome film. Emile Hirsch is really terrific in this film as well. Plus, we also have Victor Rasik and a couple other.
Michael Angelano's in it.
Oh yeah, he is in this movie.
He plays the friend.
And it's a blend of these surfers from Venice in the 1970s, how they went from surfing to skateboarding because their athleticism translated so well to skateboarding, as well as the invention basically of the skateboard, how popular it became, and they end up going on the circuit of skateboarding together, and they all become enemies in a lot of ways, and some are very successful. Some take the route of going this sort of hardcore path of anti-establishment. Some are pro-establishment. And it's a really interesting way to look at how brands developed, how skateboarding developed, and a lot of ways of marketing young kids with great talents and how it goes well and how it goes poorly.
And Catherine Hardwicke really knocked it out of the park. This is, in my opinion, still the best film she's made. Her directing is really exciting. She was using tiny digital cameras and throwing them underneath skateboards and really putting you into the perspective of skating. And I mean, some of the shots of all the guys just cruising through the streets, just grinding, and not grinding, but just like riding concrete as though they were waves.
Yeah.
She did an amazing job of translating that, the blending of these two sports and athleticisms. And it's based on the true story. Stacey Peralta, one of the leads of the movie, he's the writer of the screenplay, and it was basically an autobiographical screenplay that he wrote based upon his experience with all these guys and gals. And it's a really fascinating film. It's so much great propulsive energy. One of the better films of the early 2000s. We loved this when we were kids.
It's really good.
We watched this a ton over and over and over again because it's highly entertaining, highly rewatchable, and it also contains one of Heath Ledger's best performances.
Tragic character.
Yeah. This is the first movie that I saw him in where I was like, this guy is amazing at acting, and he really became like a completely immersed actor, becoming a different person.
What about A Knight's Tale, man?
He's great in Knight's Tale. He's great in Knight's Tale. But like his acting in Lords of Dogtown was really fantastic. And I remember everybody was just like, this guy is an amazing actor.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's a terrific movie. If you love action sports in general, you want to learn a little bit more about history of skateboarding and the origins of it, it's a really cool film to check out.
It's the best skateboarding movie.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, it's still the best one.
There aren't a ton of great ones. It's tough to do a great extreme sports film.
Yeah.
Usually that's why they're on the Disney Channel or Nickelodeon.
Break is great.
Johnny Tsunami, you know.
Grind.
Moving on to a Nicholas Winding Refn film starring Tom Hardy. This movie is bonkers. It's called Bronson, where Tom Hardy plays real-life most dangerous prisoner ever in the UK, Charles Bronson. Not to be confused with the actor. Charlie Bronson was a prisoner who is insane, but also very philosophical. And Tom Hardy takes this very surrealist approach to, which complements Nicholas Winding Refn's very surrealist filmmaking to new heights. And it's very theatrical and colorful, enigmatic, and it's just a terrific performance. This is a movie where I saw Tom Hardy in, and I was like, this guy's insane. He's so awesome in this movie. It's electric, and this is an awesome soundtrack too. Was it Cliff Martinez with?
I don't believe Cliff Martinez hooked up with Refn by then.
Yeah, this was 2000.
Drive, I think, was their first one.
In 2009. Yeah, he made this right before Drive.
He did. He did this after Valhalla Rising.
This movie's absurdly good. It's so weird, but also a goddamn trip. It's very, very unique. There's really nothing quite like this film.
Yeah, and this was really a huge coming out party for Tom Hardy, whose career was in a decline. He played the Star Trek villain in Star Trek Nemesis, but that film did so poorly, and it kind of tanked his career and pushed him down this downward spiral in his personal life, and he really had a lot of trouble digging himself out of that hole. And so for about 8 years after that, he was doing small roles, supporting roles. He was cropping up in movies here and there, movies like Layer Cake. And he's always been, like, I watched Layer Cake a few weeks ago, and he's the strongest actor in the movie.
Even Rock and Rolla, he's a small role in Rock and Rolla. And little did we know he'd be the biggest star of anyone in that cast, really.
Yeah. And Bronson was a big thing for him. He really got to show everybody what he was made of and what he was capable of as an actor. And his performance as Bronson is phenomenal. He really carries that film. And Nicholas Winding Refn, he had like these very abstract approaches to his filmmaking, and then he did Drive, which was a more bare bones, like straightforward kind of film. And then he's gotten back to but he started with Pusher, which is very gritty realism. So he's bounced around the tones of his filmmaking, which is pretty unusual for a director to go from realism to abstract surrealism, back to realism, and then back to abstract surrealism right now. But this is definitely far and away one of his better films. Incredible production and cinematography. It's got some of the most WTF moments you've ever seen in a movie before, and Tom Hardy bears it all.
It's an insane film. It really is. Next up, let's talk about an Irish film from 1993 starring Daniel Day-Lewis. We have In the Name of the Father, directed by Jim Sheridan, who you may know from Brothers and Jake Gyllenhaal. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that film, but In the Name of the Father is a great performance based on a true story as well about an Irishman who who's coerced into a confession of a bombing by the IRA in Ireland, which results in his imprisonment as well as his father's imprisonment. But then there's a lawyer who's trying to clear their names throughout the film.
It's still one of Daniel Day's most powerful performances ever, and this made him a big star all over the world. And then he won his Oscar a couple years later with My Left Foot. But In the Name of the Father is such a heartbreaking film because what essentially happens is he's this kind of wayward young guy, doesn't really fit anywhere, and then he starts he blends in basically with like a hippie-ish community in Ireland, and they live in like a communal home, and he just is anti-establishment and anti-authority, and he just wants to, be free and live his life how he pleases. And the authorities and police were very discriminatory against people like this, and so when the IRA bombing happened, they locked up a bunch of these guys, and he's one of these people. It's based on the true story, and he was in prison for 15 years wrongly. He was an innocent man, and it has some of the most heartbreaking scenes you've ever seen, whether it be the courtroom scenes or the scenes with his father, played by Pete Postlethwaite, who is also tremendous in this movie. But it is one of the most powerful films in Irish cinema history, if not the best. And my God, it's one of those films that make you think about the world in different ways.
Some of the most intense interrogation sceens. It's so good, so terrific.
Yeah.
He's an incredible actor. Yeah. It's an awesome film.
It's the best ever.
He's the best ever. It's just shocking, even at a young age like this.
Yeah.
Moving on to number 96 on our list, we have really the rise of Florence Pugh here. We have Lady Macbeth, which came out in 2016, retelling of this story with her in the main role, directed by William Oldroyd.
This is a fantastic drama. It's one of the more intriguing costume dramas because generally, costume dramas more generally have a more romantic tone and a lighthearted tone. And this film deals in murder, in lies and deception, and it's very dark. And Florence Pugh carries the movie. And this is the filmmaker's, I think, debut film, and he knocked it out of the park. He just did the film Eileen this past year. That didn't go over so well, but Lady Macbeth is an extremely strong debut for a filmmaker. I was really impressed with this. I saw this in theaters because I liked the trailer, and I had no idea who Florence Pugh was. And at the end, after that movie ended and the credits rolled, I was at the Los Feliz Theater. I was just sitting in my seat, I don't know who that actress is, but that's one of the best performances I've seen in a long time. And whoever she is, she's going to be a huge star. And then she blew up shortly after this film, but this was huge for her career. It put her on the limelight. It made her a big name in England. And obviously, people saw this film and everybody wanted to work with her. And this film is only great because of her. And her command on screen, and her control of her body, and
her frown.
Her frown is on full display in this one. This is the first famous movie with the frown. It's all over this movie. But it's a remarkable film, and it's a cool film where your character is doing terrible things, but you don't you're kind of rooting for them in a way, and you are absolutely following her story and behind her in some ways. But it's a shocking movie too. It's got some crazy surprises. And it's not for the faint of heart, but it's a fantastic drama.
All right, let's get into our next film.
What number are we at?
Number 95.
Nice.
A film from Paul Thomas Anderson. You know his big hits. There Will Be Blood, The Master. You've seen so many of his movies. Licorice Pizza, most recently.
Boogie Nights.
His next film is going to be his biggest budget, I believe. It's $140 million, which I can't wait. Starring
140?
Starring Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh my God, let's go.
This guy's
In
made
IMAX.
so many movies,
Yeah.
so many great all-time films. However, have you ever seen Hard Eight, his first feature debut, starring John C. Reilly in the great Philip Baker Hall, a gambling film. Also, Clementine, played by Gwyneth Paltrow's in this film. Mm-hmm. John plays John, who's a gambler who's being taught the ropes by this bigger, more professional gambler from Vegas who's also got a big secret from John.
Oh, yeah.
Where should we spoil? Is the secret?
Yeah, it's the setup for the
where
movie.
he's killed his father.
Yeah.
But John doesn't know it yet, and he's trying to take him under his wing as sort of a way to repent for what he's done. But also, it's a seedy world to be in. Gambling, going around casinos, trying to make a living doing that. It's gets you in difficult situations. It's an excellent film, great writing, but really terrific acting. And I think, Phil Baker Hall, he's such a standout in whenever he's in a movie, and he really carries this one on his back. And he was also in Coffee and Cigarettes, which was PTA's debut short film.
Yes, he's always been a huge Robert Altman fan, hence why he liked to cast Phil Baker Hall in his early roles. He also has a role as the game show host in Magnolia. Terrific veteran experienced actor who passed away last year. But he's an amazing lead in this film. Sam Jackson's also in this movie, and he's terrific.
The Hoff is in this movie.
Hoffman's in this movie. So you got to see an early days PTA working with John C. Reilly, who he ended up working with multiple times, who even had a cameo in Licorice Pizza. But his filmmaking is so strong in this film. It's also called Sydney. Now, there's actually a lot of bad history in this film where Paul Thomas Anderson, he made the film, and the studio that funded it, the production company that funded it, they basically took over his edit and edited it themselves, and he was very unhappy. He's happy with the film, but he's not happy with the process and how it ultimately turned out. So, and also he wanted to call it Sydney, but they didn't think it was a good name, so they wanted to go Hard 8, which is that craps play. They thought it was a better sell. Both great names, but he had a very bad experience working on the film outside of production. So in post-production and releasing the film, it was not good for him. But I think it's still a very strong debut. Obviously, his filmography is, in my opinion, one of the greatest ever already. And Paul Thomas Anderson had the greatest first 5 films of all time. It's incredible what he did. Hard 8, Boogie Nights, Magnolia, Punch Drunk Love, There Will Be Blood, The Master. It's unbelievable what the guy has done with his career, and I think he's gone in very interesting directions with a unique style and brand of storytelling with movies like Inherent Vice, going back to LA with Licorice Pizza, and I'm very excited to see his next one. But he really is one of the greats of all time, but this is how he started, and it's really fascinating to see his style in the early days like this. Kind of like Wes Anderson with Bottle Rocket, where you can see the beginnings of what they like to do with the camera.
Let's move on to number 94 on our list. We have The Killing from Stanley Kubrick, all the way in 1956. I mean, we all have heard of The Town. We've all seen that movie where there's a heist taking place during a Red Sox game at Fenway Park. The Killing follows a group of men who are hatching a scheme led by one man who wants one final heist before he marries his sweetheart, making a big heist at a racetrack. However, someone else is plotting a scheme as well.
This is a brilliant film, and it showed the genius of Kubrick. And he did a couple of noirs early in his career. This is his best one. But The Killing, it's a fantastic plan that the guys have. It's kind of a genius plan, but things do go wrong and betrayals happen. And so ultimately, it's a film about, even in a group of criminals who are joined together, you don't know who to trust. And actually, I'm guessing Chris Nolan used this movie as inspiration because the masks that they wear in The Killing are actually pretty similar to the masks that the Joker's crew wear in the Dark Knight's opening bank robbery scene. But it's fantastic filmmaking. The horse race sequence, it's one of those sequences where it's shocking how he pulled it off on such a low budget. But I think that Kubrick has made so many landmark films that movies like The Killing go really unnoticed nowadays, and they live in the shadow. Even Spartacus lives in the shadow of his greatest hits. But The Killing, make no mistake, with Paths to Glory and with Spartacus are absolute genius pieces of cinema in his early days that don't get as much recognition as his later films like 2001, like The Shining, like A Clockwork Orange. And this is definitely one to check out. If you like crime, I couldn't tell you how many movies have drawn inspiration from this. And he brought a new brutality and some new tones of filmmaking to the film noir genre. That was really refreshing in the time.
Let's move on to number 93. Yorgos Lanthimos is on our list here with one of his early films back in 2009, Dogtooth, which is an absolute trip as you expect from Yorgos Lanthimos, more in line with Kinds of Kindness versus Poor Things, but kind of similar in a lot of ways, where it follows this father and mother who have basically trapped their 3 children in their home their entire lives. They've never left, and they're older. They're in their late teens, some early 20s, and they are stuck in this childlike state of existence where they've never experienced anything outside of the world. There's this great blend and metaphor, I think, for governments in societies where there's so much misinformation, misguided judgments, so many lies and manipulation of their brains and their youth to control them in so many specific ways. And then a wrench gets thrown to everything when a new younger woman, a security guard, comes to their compound, their villa, to she affects the children in an interesting way, to say the least.
And essentially, this is a film about control, and it's about brainwashing. So the parents have raised their children with a completely skewed version of reality, where they don't understand what the world is because all they know is what they've experienced in this childhood with these parents. And I love the film because it's so bizarre and it's so strange, but it's incredibly brilliant. And the new person that enters the home, it shows the contrast of what a normal person in the world is like versus what these kids are like because of what they've been taught. And for example, they think airplanes are tiny, like the size you can hold it in your hand. And there's a great moment where they see a plane in the sky, and the way parents explain the planes is they actually throw a little toy plane on the grass, fooling the kids thinking that it fell.
Yeah, they tell them, run around the corner to try to catch it.
Exactly. So that's an example of how they have completely skewed what reality is to the children, and because they've never left the confines of their home. It's an absolute brilliant display of writing. I think it's one of the most original scripts of the 21st century, and it was really the big coming out party for Yorgos Lanthimos. This was the Greece's Oscar-nominated film in the Best Foreign Language Film category that year, and so it was a huge hit. And I like Kinds of Kindness because it went closer to this kind of filmmaking that he was doing earlier in his career, and it is absolutely a breath of fresh air. I know that people love Yorgos, but from what I've spoken to a lot of people, they haven't seen Dogtooth. They love The Favorite. They love Killing a Sacred Deer. They love The Lobster. But still, Dogtooth, I think, is still one that really flies under the radar. So if you love Yorgos, I'm telling you right now, Dogtooth is still his best film.
This is my first Yorgos film I was ever exposed to, and I've never been the same since.
Yeah, there's pre-Yorgos' Dogtooth and then post-Yorgos' Dogtooth.
Moving on to number 92 on our list, we have Polytechnique, which is an early film from the great, the master, Denis Villeneuve. This is a dramatization of the real event of the 1989 Montreal massacre, during which several female students, engineering students, were murdered by an unstable man with a rifle. This came out all the way back in 2009.
And based on a true story, we actually have another film on this list that has similar themes, but I think that filmmaker's film ultimately was still even more extraordinary than this one. But this is an incredible black and white film. It's a very patient film, like all of Denis Villeneuve's movies, but also it has something more to say than just the violence unfolding. It has a lot to say with social dynamics between genders and feminism versus masculinity. And I think this movie is a great starter for Villeneuve films early in his career. It showcased the brilliant his visuals in this movie are just incredible. What he's choosing to put in the frame, how he's choosing to shoot his images, and also the sound design. And his sound design is phenomenal. This is definitely one that, for his filmography, gets the least amount of attention, but it really blew him up in a big way. After he made 2 films early in his career that weren't quite up to snuff, he came back in a huge way and rebounded with Polytechnique greatly.
All right, next up, number 91. We got a Pacino and William Friedkin movie on this list. Now, look how excited Anthony is.
I love this movie.
We have Cruising all the way back in 1980, where Pacino plays a police officer who goes undercover in the underground S&M gay club scene and subculture of New York City to try and catch a serial killer who is preying on gay men.
This is one of Friedkin's... It is his most underrated masterwork as a filmmaker. There is nothing like Cruising on screen in film. It's a very unique movie. It's one of Pacino's most interesting acting performances as well. It's just a remarkable world, and Friedkin really puts you into that world. It's a very specific community at a very specific time in a very specific part of New York City. And it's a fantastic, immersive experience. If you've never seen this film, I couldn't recommend it enough. You can watch it on Mubi, and you can watch it on Criterion Channel right now. But Cruising is a fascinating tale. It is controversial. It was very controversial when it came out, although critics of the film have lightened up over the past several decades. And I think it's a universally agreed that it's a really, even if you don't love the movie, you can't help but deny the power of the filmmaking, the sound design, the cinematography, the music, and it's just this remarkable piece of cinema that really stands on its own.
Lots of leather and lots of
leather, lots of sweat.
Moving on to number 90, we might have the funnest movie on this list, an incredible action film that influenced Quentin Tarantino, as well as clearly in a lot of ways probably the Hunger Games franchise, possibly.
She denies it, but I don't know, man. It's hard not to.
We have Battle Royale. This is an incredible film coming out of Japan in the future where Japanese government captures or takes a class of students, puts them on an island, and they have to all fight to the death until there's one superior person, one winner. Sound familiar? And this is all the way back in 2000, and this is an incredible film. It's so crazy, it's absurd, it's funny, it's dangerous, and I think it's very risky too. And it just is exciting as hell. You'll have a blast watching it. It's very camp at the same time as just great filmmaking. But it's very much in line with what the Hunger Games plot is, except on a bigger scope with more people involved, less advanced weaponry, less skilled people, just a bunch of students. They think they've won this experience, right? They're on the secluded island, and then their teacher basically explains to them what's going down, and it's intense, it's wild. But also I think it's a lot more realistic to how maybe 20 or 30 people would respond to being put in a situation like this. It's so surreal and awesome.
Yeah, there's a movie that I always think of when I watch this film, and it's Taps with Tom Cruise and Timothy Hutton, because it's young people carrying out extreme violence with weaponry, as well as that Chucky movie, the third Chucky movie, you know?
At the military school?
The military school one where he puts bullets into the rifles that everyone thinks are blanks for the training, and then it ends up being like a bunch of young people literally shooting each other.
Yeah.
And so those are two movies that I always picture when I watch this movie. And I only watched this movie, I think I was 16, 17. I watched it because Tarantino kept recommending it, and he's been an amazing voice for Asian cinema and getting people to watch Asian films. And he's always been a huge pusher of movies like Audition, movies like Battle Royale, and also Bong Joon-ho's in filmography, Park Chan-wook. So he's been a great advocate for Asian films before the age of social media, where it could spread like fire. And Battle Royale is amazing, and you could tell he's such a huge fan of it because he even cast one of the actresses in Kill Bill.
It's Go-Go.
As Go-Go. But this movie's...
She plays like a very similar version of the character.
Makes like the same faces and everything. But it's a fantastic movie. It's a very cool tone. It's funny, and it's grisly. It's great violence and super bloody. But once you let this movie take you over, it's really fun. It's a fun ride.
Let's get to our first Australian film, Mike.
Australia.
All the way back in 2005, starring Guy Pearce, we have The Proposition, which is a great Western, especially for this century. Outside of Tarantino, there aren't a ton of great Westerns really worth talking about. Mm-hmm. There are maybe, I would say, 10 or 15 outside of Tarantino. This is definitely one of them. It's one of the better ones of the century. It also stars the great Ray Winstone, Emily Watson, as well as Richard Wilson, and Noah Taylor. A bunch of familiar faces.
Yeah, and Guy Pearce is phenomenal in this. And this is a Western that we watched. We got this on DVD.
Yeah, we had it on DVD.
Yeah, we rented it at Blockbuster, and we loved it so much we ended up buying it like at Best Buy because it's so cool. And it's a great moral film because Guy Pearce's character basically, in order to save his younger brother, he's forced by Ray Winstone's character, who is like the local sheriff, military sheriff, he's forced to hunt down his older brother, who is a huge criminal, played by Danny Huston. And it's a great film. It's brutal. It's very dirty in a good way. And you can feel like the visceral elements of the desert when you watch this film. You feel hot when you watch this movie. You feel like thirsty when you watch this movie. And this was really huge for Guy Pearce. It really made him a big superstar in Australia and all over the world. And Danny Huston, the son of John Huston, this was also massive for his career. He had done Birth with Nicole Kidman. And then this was a really great role where he got to show everybody that he is a great actor. He's not just a director's son. But I love the movie. Ray Winstone, this was the first thing I think we saw him in as kids.
Maybe.
Either that or The Departed. And he's fantastic. He's great as the villain in this movie. And Emily Watson as well, as his wife.
All right, number 88 on our list. We have Quiz Show from the great year of 1994, starring Ray Fiennes, John Turturro, as well as Rob Morrow, directed by Robert Redford. This is based on true events of a quiz show that was fixed.
John Turturro has been a long-time winner, and he's from, I believe he's from Queens, and he's kind of a nobody, and he's been winning, but then Ray Fiennes' character wins the next one, and then he keeps winning over and over again, and it becomes the most watched show on TV. And also, this movie deals in classism. So Turturro's just a poor Jewish guy from this part of Queens, and Ray Fiennes' character, I believe, is a Protestant, high class, comes from a hugely respected family, wealthy family, and so he got better ratings for all those reasons. So the TV show and the producers were like, he's doing better, let's push him and let him keep winning. And they start feeding him the answers. And it's about morality. It's about truth and deception. And Ray Fiennes' character, it's great because you really empathize with him. And they don't show you right off the bat that he's cheating. But then there's this great line halfway through the film when people start questioning his winning, and rumors start spreading that he's been cheating. And he says this great line where he goes, well, it wasn't completely cheating. I mean, they asked me the questions, and then I was able to look up the answers in my own time. So that's how he was able to morally defend himself, where they stopped just giving him the answers outright to the point where they would just give him the questions the week before. And so he felt that since he was going to the library and looking up the answers, it was less cheating. And so it's this great character of Ray Fiennes in this movie. It's a great contrast with him and Turturro's character. It's Robert Redford's best feat of directing, in my opinion. It's a fantastic film. If it didn't come out in 94, it probably would have gotten more attention because that was such a strong year.
It was a good year. We're going to have to cover that
94 is a good year to do. Yeah.
Let's move on to number 87. We have our first George Lucas film on this list. Before Star Wars, everybody, he made a movie called THX 1138, starring the great Robert Duvall, everybody, in this crazy dystopian future where these characters who are just designated letters are rebelling against their society. Yeah,
it's a world where human beings are not allowed to feel emotion anymore, and they all take this medication that numbs them. They're not allowed to procreate. They're not allowed to interact emotionally with other human beings, and they're just a workforce. That's all they are. Duvall's character stops taking the pills, and he and a woman who he worked with begin a relationship. And them having a relationship makes them basically criminals, and they're hunted down by authorities. If you've heard this before, it's been copied many times in
1984. Yeah. Equilibrium.
This is like a spin of 1984 in a way. This is very Orwellian, but a lot of people have copied the emotionless drones that Lucas put in this film.
Yeah, so Equilibrium is a great example of a society that's taking a pill to not feel emotions. It's the main plot of that film.
Great point, as well as Equals with Kristen Stewart and I think it was Holt. Same thing. People are not allowed to feel emotions and they start a relationship. Yeah, it was Holt. So this movie has been copied, but this is really a fantastic piece of science fiction cinema. It showed George Lucas's potential as a filmmaker, crafting great visuals on a very small scale and budget. He's added, unfortunately, some CGI to it, but the original version is much better. He added some stuff with the car chase, and I remember the first time I watched this movie, I wasn't aware of that, and I was like a teenager, and there's this crazy moment of police officers are chasing Duvall's character, and there's this huge crash in a highway tunnel, and the first time I watched it, I was like, oh my God, how did they do that? It's like incredible CGI. And then I didn't realize he had added some effects after the fact, like he did with the prequels and the Star Wars originals. And I was like, oh, okay. That was because when I watched it the first time, I was like, that's impossible. How'd they do that in 1971? It works well, but the original version is a much better adaptation. But THX 1138 is a really, really cool science fiction film. Check it out if you have not.
Moving on to a Robert Altman film from 1973. This is number 86 on our list. We have The Long Goodbye. When it comes to private eye films, everyone talks about Chinatown. We talk about that film a lot. But The Long Goodbye is a private eye film that we cannot recommend enough.
It's also a great cat movie.
Yeah, the tabby, right?
Yeah, so
Juno's in this movie.
Elliot Gould plays the private eye in this movie. And back to PTA being heavily inspired by Robert Altman, Barry, the character in Punch Drunk Love, wears pretty much the same suit that Elliot Gould's character wears in this movie, the blue suit with the red tie. And there's a lot of visual cues and references that PTA made in Punch Drunk Love to this film. But this is a great mystery. It's one of the best PI movies that kind of flies under the radar, but thanks to Tubi and Criterion, it's getting a lot of attention. And Elliot Gould plays a great, really cool PI. And obviously, PI films generally have the same story arcs. He's investigating the disappearance and the death of someone, and that leads to a bigger criminal conspiracy.
There's always a wife.
Yeah, there's always a wife, but he goes about in a different way. It doesn't have the cliches outside of those, and it has this really cool seediness about it. Great visual filmmaking, like Robert Altman's movies always had, and it's got one of the craziest conclusions I've ever seen. Like, this is a movie where the biggest moment happens at the very end. It's not like there's a great climax and there's like 5 minutes of resolution or whatever after the movie. Like, this movie's climax is the final seconds of this movie, and it is phenomenal. It takes you by surprise. And I watched this. I was mad at myself for never watching it. I watched it this year for the first time this spring. And when the credits rolled, I was like, oh my God, why did I never watch this movie before? It's that good. And it's a great cat movie. Great cat movie.
Great cat movie. Number 85 on our list, we have from Mel Gibson, Apocalypto, which is an incredible film about tribes in the Mayan kingdom who are where they are raided by this larger group where they take over
the
the
Aztec
tribe,
Empire.
the Aztec Empire. They come in and destroy their tribe. And one of the leaders of the tribe, one of the young men, seeks to escape his imprisonment before he is killed and given as homage to the sun and his heart ripped out to get back and save his pregnant wife, who he hid at the bottom of basically a larger well in a lot of ways, or a little cave before someone finds her. So incredible filmmaking. It is hilarious, but also great action. Mm-hmm. So much energy. The elements involved in this, we have so much rain that's terrifying, is people being sacrificed to the freaking sun, being thrown down the bottom of pyramids. There's blood all over this film. The colors are incredible, and a great tie-in with pioneers coming in from Europe at the end of the film as well.
Yeah.
Ties in a lot of threads here in this film, but it's really terrific filmmaking. I love this movie so much.
And speaking of that, this movie gets a little criticism for not being completely historical, but Gibson was like putting in a bunch of things that happen over time, and he's putting it in one package.
Yeah,
So it's totally understandable. But the filmmaking on display,
it's not as bad as 65.
Yeah, exactly. That's the movie for a different day. But this movie is really flat out just one of the most visceral, highly energetic, and unique films on this list. You completely immersed into this world. The world building is phenomenal, and it starts with great authenticity. This movie is well received for its authentic portrayal of tribes, and he makes you really love these people and really feel for all of the characters. In the whole thing, no one speaks English, which I think is also fantastic. The cast, if they weren't fluent in this language, they did learn their lines in that language. So because it's an older version of the language, so not everyone in the cast even spoke it, and so the historical accuracy in those regards are fantastic, but then also entering what we see as the peak of the Aztec Empire. It's a culture we've never seen on this scale before. And what's really cool is the movie's so small in scale in the first act, and then where Jaguarfoot's, that's his name, Jaguarfoot?
I believe.
Yeah, that's the lead. We're in his perspective. He's the surrogate for the audience. And like him, we are just forced along and pulled to this journey into the Aztec Empire.
Jaguar Paw,
thank you. Jaguar Paw. And walking, and also, it's not like so many other films where the filmmaker will show a wide shot of the city. And like, now we're in Egypt, or now we're in whatever. We're walking from the edges of the Aztec Empire into the center, and you see the destruction of nature around the edges of the city and how they've ripped through nature, and that's one of the causes of starvation that happened in that civilization, of poor farming and not being mindful of the resources that they were taking away, and then showing the manual labors, people making crafts. Then we get to the vendors and the shops and the slave traders, and then we get to the temple, and then we get to and then we see the priests and the people in charge at the top of the temple. So we get to see the entire hierarchy of the Aztec Empire in basically one 15-minute on-foot journey, which is fantastic. And then the last 40 minutes of this movie is just a chase, and it is unbelievably propulsive and exciting. It's a fantastic film.
All right, let's move on to a Palme d'Or winner from 2009. We have The White Ribbon, which is a really brilliant film. It's about all these strange events that are happening inside this small northern German town from 1913 all the way up to World War I that are inexplicable. And there's injuries, horses tripping over wires, people getting killed, people disappearing, which overall can be a large metaphor for something greater.
It's a fantastic film from Michael Haneke. It's going to be the first on this list, but not the last. It's his only film that he shot in black and white. And actually his films are generally about small group of characters. This is his biggest in scope because it tells a story amongst an entire community, and also deals with punishment and discipline and the hierarchy of a group. It's a difficult watch like any of his films, but also it's this great mystery. These acts are happening, violent acts. What started out as pranks end up becoming really brutal moments and acts of violence, and then it centers upon essentially a young boy up against this leader of the community. This man, he's a teacher, and the discipline he's toling out with no evidence. And so the idea of why is someone allowed to punish others, and the others have to get in line against his discipline. It's an incredible film about the social construct of a community and all the ties and beings involved. It's definitely one of his best works. If you like Haneke, this might be one you haven't seen before.
All right, it's time to talk about the man.
Oh, yeah.
Number 83, we have Michael Mann's debut feature, Thief, from 1981, starring the great James Caan. This is an excellent crime film. It exudes cool like nothing else. Incredible opening of a heist. Really gritty, in-your-face filmmaking. James Caan's the ultimate tough guy, with vulnerability as well in this film. You know, kind of breaking the chains of that archetype in a lot of ways. But man, this movie's so cool. He gets screwed over on a heist. He wants out, but they keep pulling him back in.
What I do, they pull me back.
Pull me right back in. Just
when I think I'm out, they bring me back in.
It's a great movie. Great movie.
And Michael Mann really, it's one of the best debuts ever, Thief. And I really love how much attention this film has gotten over time, especially now. It's really big on social media, and it's really big and on Letterboxd, and young film fans are discovering the genius of Michael Mann, who, yes, he's had some films that aren't amazing, but he really is one of the greatest directors in American history working today. And he brought so much style to filmmaking in the 80s. And he really, so many filmmakers and so many cinematographers ended up basically copying his style because it was so cool. Never been done before. It's kind of, you can compare it to the color contrast filmmaking that filmmakers like Nicholas Winding Refn brought in the 2010s, and John Wick brought in. That color contrast, highly stylized filmmaking that we see a ton now. You can compare that to what Michael Mann brought to the 80s, of huge contrast, incredible colors, and just it oozes coolness. And then to do Thief and then Manhunter so early in a person's career, that's phenomenal. And Thief is still one of his best.
Moving on to number 82 from 1974, director and writer John Cassavetes. We have A Woman Under the Influence, about a family and about a wife who becomes mentally unstable, and her husband has her committed.
So Gina Rowlands, who just passed away, unfortunately, a couple of days ago. So she's really in A Woman Under the Influence. It could be the greatest performance of all time. And when you watch this film, it's a long, epic, about just a couple of days within the lives, a couple of weeks within the lives of this married couple and their family. And she plays a woman named Mabel who is dealing with intense mental health issues and lapses in reality and serious behavioral problems. And it's about her husband who, Peter Falk is great in this film. He's trying his best to deal with it, but still it's hard to, he doesn't want to control her, but also she has these crazy outbursts, these violent outbursts and they come from nowhere. And it's hard for her to be around people. And Gina Rowlands brings so much complexity to this role. And Cassavetes was one of the best directors of his time. He's also an actor, and so he's very much an actor's director. And this film, what's so impressive about it is it was also highly improvised, and it's just a really incredible performance from Rowlands, where you truly feel this is a real human being. And the way he photographs it, it feels more like we're watching them as humans behave rather than the film is trying to carry out certain camera techniques or cinematography. And it's a very complicated situation. And there's moments where he sends her away to a mental health institution for help, but does that really help? And it's about him trying to deal with, like, how do I handle this woman? I love her, but she's driving me nuts, and she's like putting people around her at risk with her behavior. And so how do you juggle that? And it's really flat out. It really is one of the greatest acting performances ever.
Moving on to number 81, everybody, we have The Night of the Hunter, directed by Charles Lofton. This came out in 1955. Influential film for some great filmmakers, specifically Spike Lee. This is about a preacher who marries a gullible widow because he's heard that her husband has hidden away $10,000, I believe.
Yeah.
And he thinks that he can get out of his children.
It's a fantastic film. It's about one of the early serial killers movies, and it's a great piece of cinema. One of the greatest performances of all time, and I highly recommend checking it out.
And this is where Spike Lee got the love-hate tattoos for his films. He got it from Night of the Hunter first.
Yeah,
we talked about that on the show before.
And Robert Mitchum is the killer. He's the Cape Fear. He was in the first Cape Fear as Max Cady. Great actor.
Oh, that's right.
He's the original Max Cady.
Yeah, so Do the Right Thing. The hand tattoos came from this.
All right, next up we have our first film from an Italian director, Michelangelo Antonioni, with Blow Up, which came out in 1966, which is one of the great mystery movies of all time. It's about this photographer in England. He's a high fashion photographer. It's a really incredible day in the life, first 15 minutes. And then he's wandering about town, and he sees this couple talking in a park, and he takes a voyeuristic photo of them. When he blows it up later, he thinks he sees someone holding a gun in the image. And so he blows it up onto this wall, and he's like, that's definitely a gun. He goes back to the location, and it starts him on this quest and this mystery of, was this woman killed? Did he actually photograph a murder? And so he goes into this chaotic odyssey of reality versus surrealism, to the point where he's not sure what's real and what's not real anymore. And it's a fantastic ending, a really cool film. Antonioni was one of the best filmmakers in Italy's history, and this is one of his English language masterpieces.
Sounds like Blowout.
It's similar to Blowout. Instead of recording a murder, he photographs a murder.
Which is also a movie you all should check out.
But also, unlike Blowout, this movie is not quite as clear-cut as that one.
Gotcha. All right, next up, number 79 on our list from 1944, we have Gaslight, which we actually talked about quite a bit, I think last episode or 2 episodes ago. This is an all-time classic. It's actually where the term gaslight came from, directed by George Cukor.
Yeah, this is a great film, and it's about this man who enters a woman's life, and he has an ulterior motive for marrying her, and then he starts basically driving her mad by gaslighting her about things she's apparently doing in terms of ruining his life, and she, unawares, thinks that she's at fault for everything. And so ultimately he's trying to make her mad to get something from her. It's a fantastic set of performances from the two leads. Great film from 1944. It's an unbelievable film. We couldn't recommend it enough.
All right, next up, 78, we have Hard Boiled from John Woo, which is just kind of a ridiculous action movie in the best ways possible, starring Chow Yun-fat, who was so big in the 90s and early 2000s. The poster is just ridiculous. It's him holding a baby in a shotgun. It's awesome. He's just tough as nails cop. He teams up with an undercover agent to shut down a sinister mobster with his crew. Excellent action from the master.
I love that movie. It's also got one of the greatest wonders in action history, where him and his new partner in crime are basically taking out several floors of bad guys all in one take, and it's unbelievable to behold.
Yeah, that's a great shot.
Yeah. All right, next up we have a Japanese classic from 1996, Supermarket Woman, which is one of the zaniest screwball comedies of all time. It's definitely the silliest movie on this list. So Supermarket Woman is about this man who's a manager of a failing supermarket who's competing against a new corporate giant that just opened up nearby. And so she takes it upon herself to basically help rejuvenate his business, to make it better and to improve it in order to compete against this huge corporate entity that is just ripping customers off with fake sales. It's a great look behind the scenes of a supermarket and a grocery store. After I watched this film, I had a much more appreciation for what goes into these stores, where you can walk into a store and grab any kind of food you want at a pretty affordable price. We're very lucky to have it. And so I gained a new appreciation for it. And also, she's just one of the best comedic actors of all time. She's also in Tampopo and a couple more of Itami's films because they were married. But this is a fantastic comedy.
All right, let's talk about a Wong Kar-wai film from 1995, Fallen Angels. This is one I see quite a bit of in terms of cinematography. There's a lot of great famous shots, like the green tunnel on the motorcycle with the smoking a cigarette. Now, this is a sort of a two movies combined, two storylines intertwined together. We have a hitman who strikes up a relationship with a prostitute that's connected to a story of a mute ex-convict on the run from police, and a mentally unstable woman who was just recently dumped by her boyfriend. Classic Wong Kar faction. There's a lot of great action, and there's a lot of great mystery and romanticism and surrealism, and great colors as always.
Yeah, the film stocks they were using, they varied, which is super rare to use different stocks to get a completely different look. And it's like Chungking Express, where it's really two films put into one. And really, so no filmmaker could really do it like he did. And he's phenomenal at balancing the narratives together. Next up, at number 75, we have a French film from the Dardenne brothers, Luc Dardenne and Jean-Pierre Dardenne, the Belgian filmmakers. We have 2 Days, One Night, starring Marion Cotillard. So they're filmmakers who are famous for their very realistic, gritty dramas about lower-class citizens and immigrants and the struggles they have in cities like Paris and in Belgium. And Marion Cotillard was really the first big movie star they had in one of their movies.
Yeah, it was actually odd to see such a huge star in one of their films.
Exactly, and being such a big fan of theirs, I wasn't sure walking into 2 Days, One Night how I would feel seeing such a huge movie star. But it actually worked really well, and Marion Cotillard is one of the best actors alive, and she fit their tone perfectly. It's a really great concept of this woman. She works at a factory, and she's told by management she's going to lose her job because of pay cuts. However, there's a way she can save her job. She has to go to each of her fellow employees over the weekend, hence the title 2 Days, One Night. So she has to go to each employee and basically ask them, are you willing to take a pay cut and not accept an upcoming bonus so that I can keep my job? It's a really great moral dilemma, and you can't really knock anyone for not wanting to, because some people are immediately like, oh yeah, I got you, girl. And like, no problem. I want you to still have your job.
I got you, girl.
But some people are like, I have a family to feed, and this new money and this bonus that we could get is really going to help me pay the rent.
It also connects their interpersonal relationships, because she's not a perfect person.
Yes.
And she doesn't get along with everybody.
Exactly. She's not like the person that everybody loves. You're right. And so some people are like, I don't even like you. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm sorry. Get a new job. So it's an incredible performance by Marion Cotillard, but also just a remarkable display of the intricacies and difficulties of human beings, and it's difficult just to get by. And when push comes to shove, what comes first? Your family or your coworker? It's a great movie.
All right, moving on to another Michael Haneke film. What goes on in this guy's mind is just interesting. The ideas he comes up with. So we have Cash, which came out in 2005. Anthony's punching the air in excitement.
I love Haneke.
A married couple who are terrorized by a series of surveillance videotapes that are left on their front porch.
Yeah, it's great, and it's a great performance from Juliette Binoche, who's in a couple Haneke films. And they basically start getting terrorized by this voyeuristic, mysterious person who keeps photographing and filming like their doorstep or through their window and threatening them. And they don't know who it is. They're trying to figure out what's going on. Why is someone trying to torment them? And it's a Haneke movie where he's made a few films with big twists. Like Seven Continents, what a twist. Mm-hmm. This movie also has a great twist and a conclusion. We couldn't recommend Cash enough. It's one of his best for sure. You can watch it on Criterion and Mubi.
Next up at number 73, we have a Gus Van Sant film from 1995 starring Nicole Kidman, To Die For, about this beautiful, naive, aspiring television personality who films a documentary on teenagers with a darker, ulterior motive.
This is Nicole Kidman's one of her best performances in Joaquin Phoenix. Early role for him. Casey Affleck, early role for him. And so she's obsessed with fame, and she wants to be a famous TV news correspondent and journalist. So she's starting out small time with the local TV, and she's really someone who believes that I'm willing to do whatever I can to rise, no matter how cruel or nefarious it is. And she comes up with this plot to gain attention, which is horrible, to have her husband killed. And she tasks Joaquin Phoenix's teenage character to do it by making him fall in love with her. And it's an incredible, incredible performance of really one of the better villains on screen in recent memory by Nicole Kidman's performance. And I love the movie. We're actually going to have another Gus Van Sant movie on this list as well. This is definitely one of his greater accomplishments as a director.
Back to the Dardenne brothers at number 72. We have La Promesse, The Promise, about this man who exploits immigrants with his son by using them to traffic until one of the immigrants, a man, is killed, leaving his family without anyone to provide for them.
Yeah, and Jeremy Renier, who was in a few Dardennes movies. This is him when he was like 16 in the first collaboration with them. It's great. He basically takes it upon himself to help the wife and baby of the dead man because his father's they actually cover up the death of the man on their construction site. And I'm not going to tell you what they do, but it's disturbing. And so he basically betrays his father to try and help this poor woman. And it's a tragic tale, so powerful like many of the other films. This is definitely one of the best pieces of filmmaking they've done. And just like all their movies, La Promesse is just one of a kind in the world of European cinema and world cinema. Definitely check it out.
Next up, we have a bit of a romance film. We have A Summer's Tale from 1996, directed by and written by Eric Romer. It's about this guy who goes on a little vacation on a seaside town, hoping his girlfriend will meet up with him. However, he ends up meeting a couple other girls who are both, one of them specifically is very smitten with him.
It's a great movie because he's kind of an asshole, but you also... You're kind of rooting for him. And he's someone he's lovesick and he's depressed, but his obsession with his girlfriend clouds his judgment to the point where to try and deal with the stress of her not knowing if she really wants him, he basically is taking advantage of the attention of other girls. It's a great film. It's one of the best summer movies too. Eric Romer, his filmmaking is very simplistic, but also highly realistic. And when these people talk with their dialogue, it sounds like they are real human beings. And he also carried out the French New Wave tradition of filming in real locations with real people in the backgrounds, which is super fun to see. When you watch this movie, you're like, oh, those are not 600 extras on the beach. They're just really filming a movie on the beach with people behind them.
Number 70 from Italy in 2013, we have The Great Beauty, written and directed by Paolo Sorrentino, about this older man who, after his 65th birthday and having spent decades seducing the lavish nightlife and lifestyle of Rome, finally reflects on his life and for the first time really reflects on the beauty of where he's from.
This is like the closest thing that someone's made to 8.5 in Italy, where you have this highly accomplished artist in person who has it all, but was it all worth it? And what's it all mean? And Paolo Sorrentino is one of Italy's best. He's every time he makes a movie, you should make it a must-watch. The Great Beauty got him a ton of attention on the word circuits all over the world. Another great performance from the lead actor, Tony Servillo, who's one of Italy's best still to this day. And he recently did The Hand of God, which got a lot of attention. If you like that movie, check out The Great Beauty because it's just as powerful. And it's when I watched this movie, I just kept thinking of Fellini.
All right, let's get to our first Andrei Tarkovsky film at number 69. We have Mirror, which came out in 1975, about this man who's reminiscing about his past and his memories of his life, his child, his mother, the war. Isn't this also a bit of a sort of a story about himself in a lot of ways?
Yeah, definitely.
In memoir in a lot of ways, about reflecting about growing up during and as a child in World War II, about Russia, the painful divorce in his family, the broken family he comes from, and interweaving reflections about Russian history and society.
And it's just like any other Tarkovsky film, some of the best photography of all time, and really cool surrealist abstract ideas. Like there's this shot in this movie of a little girl at the table, the camera pulls back, and then a glass of water falls on its own and then rolls off the table. And he also pans the camera through the house and pushes it outside, and then we see the shed in the backyard on fire, and the group watching it. There's this really great atmospheric tone to his films that no one's ever really been able to duplicate, and his movies are more poetry than they are linear storytelling. And it's a collection of memories blended together with dreams. There's really nothing like it. His movies are not easy to watch, but they are rewarding on rewatches. And in terms of filmmaking, if you're interested in production and camera work, like you got to watch Tarkovsky movies, and this might be his most visually impressive feat of directing.
Speaking of impressive visuals, the next film on our list at number 68 is Long Day's Journey into Night, which came out in 2018, written and directed by B. Gon. This is an incredible film that features the longest oneer ever, right? Almost.
We have a movie
40
on this
minutes.
list that's 57 minutes.
57-minute long take.
It's the most impressive oneer, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's really incredible. It's more than half the film.
They spent 2 months practicing this oneer, and they traverse mountain ranges. They go through a village. You watch performances. You see a person hit a pool shot. You see a person drive a little toy car with an item on it. There's so many things that could go wrong, as well as the performances and story unfolding, which blends into this crazy surrealist dream. But it's really one of the most impressive feats of directing in recent memory. Long Day's Journey into Night has nothing to do with the Shakespeare work. It's just the same title. But it's an incredible piece of cinema out of China, and if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It's really incredible.
Absolutely terrific.
Following it up with another film from the region with Happy Together, our next Wong Kar-wai film, which is about the tumultuous up and down relationship between two men. Tony Young is the lead actor in this film, and multiple collaborations with Wong Kar-wai. This movie's beautiful, and it's stunning to behold as a visual feast, but also the character work, the dynamics between the two men. I think it's one of the best relationship movies of all time because it shows the imperfections and the difficulties that any relationship has. Movies often glamorize and romanticize relationships, but Wong Kar-wai's depiction of this couple is really truthful and authentic. There's some great fights in it, as well as great tenderness and moments of love. It feels like a true, authentic relationship put on screen, and it's a beautiful film to behold. All
right, let's talk about from 1960 on number, what are we on right now? Number 66, a Billy Wilder film.
Yes.
The Apartment, about this guy, this Manhattan insurance clerk who offers up his apartment for executives at the company to come have their extramarital relationships with, but it all becomes a mess once it all gets connected with his own life.
Yeah, and then he ends up he's falling for this woman who runs the elevator at the office, and it complicates everything. It's a wonderful set of performances from the two leads, a fantastic, like perfect screenplay. It's so well done. And then Billy Wilder's directing. What I love about movies from the 50s and 60s is the sexiest jobs a guy could have were insurance salesman, bank manager.
Do you have a consistent income? Oh, you're so hot.
Yeah, that was like the cool job of Hollywood. Now it's like, are you like a cop or a spy or something dangerous? But back then it was like a safe, well-paying, respected job was like the hot job for
That's what
your
women
lead.
wanted.
It just cracks me
You
up.
sell cars? Oh my God.
Because
So hot.
I watched another Wilder movie, Double Indemnity, last night, and the lead character is an insurance salesman, but he's like suave and sexy and super cool, and like he hits on women constantly, and like that was like the cool job of the day. It's just funny how things change.
All right, let's move on. Number 65 on our list, we have Day for Night, directed and written by Francois Truffaut. It's about a filmmaker who's struggling to complete his movie while dealing with his life.
Day for Night is the best film about filmmaking, and it shows the entire production of a movie from the perspective of, yes, the director, but everyone else. It's also incredibly funny. It shows the hijinks, the chaos, the unpredictable nature of making a film, and it's so cool to see like Truffaut acts like perfectly blended in the narrative with what's happening on set. The problems that arise when you have like a spoiled actor who's ruining production or someone who doesn't even know what they're doing. And there's a great moment where, and he plays the director too. He plays the director himself. There's this great moment where he's like walking through a room, but people keep running up to him asking him a question. Which one do you like, this red or blue, or what should this look like? And he can't like even pass through an interior of a room without being asked like 20 questions from different parts of the crew. And so it shows the incredible stress and amount of detail put into the job of being a director, but also showcases other aspects like the stunt people are parts of the cast. And I really love the movie. It's super entertaining, whip fast, and just so funny.
All right, number 64 on our list, we have an Orson Welles film from 1962 starring Anthony Perkins, a couple of years off of Psycho, called The Trial, about an unassuming office worker who's arrested and stands trial, but he doesn't know what the charges are.
The Trial is an adaptation of the Franz Kafka novel, and Orson Welles perfectly depicted the surrealist abstract nature of that writer's storytelling. Perkins, in one of his best performances, because he made Citizen Kane and Touch of Evil, Orson Welles' The Trial kind of lives in the shadow of those, but it's gotten a lot of resurgence online. It really is one of the most brilliant pieces of filmmaking of its time. The cinematography and production is unbelievable. This movie is just a fever dream. It's all about the justice system. It's about the law. Like, what is law? What is justice? Who determines what's right and wrong? That's why Perkins' character doesn't know what he's done wrong. He doesn't know what he's being convicted or on trial of, because the idea of right and wrong is kind of abstract. You can't really define it. We base it on a certain set of morals and morality. But why do these people get to enact justice, and what is justice? And the sets in this movie are unbelievable. Orson Welles' second masterpiece after Citizen Kane, without a doubt.
We are back to the Dardenne brothers for L'Enfant, or The Child, which came out in 2005. This is number 63 on our list. It's about this young couple living off what they can find in terms of the thefts committed by his gang and also off her benefits, who now have a new source of money. They have a young child who the father sells.
Yeah, it's Jeremy Renner plays the lead in this film, and this is their second Cannes win for Palme d'Or. And so he sells the child, the baby, just for quick money, not knowing and not realizing how horrible of a thing it is. And his girlfriend basically falls into a maddening, like, comatose state upon the shock of hearing that her child was sold. And so the film is about him trying to find the child again and trying to buy the baby back to return it to the mother. It's an incredible film. You've never seen anything like it before. Check out L'Enfant ASAP.
Next up, number 62 on our list, an Italian film directed by Marco Giordana. 2003 came out. The Best of Youth. I think we've talked about this on the show before.
Yeah, I watched it.
About this, the lives of these two brothers from
Yeah.
the 1960s, 2000s.
I watched it about 6 years. 6 months ago. It's a 6-hour movie. It's not a miniseries. It's one movie, but it's worth the runtime. It's about these two men who go on completely different paths in life. They're brothers. They have completely different values and ideals and approaches to life and things they do. But the story basically showcases when they reconnect and when they run into each other again over their life and their differences, their disillusionment with each other, and then their embracement of one another again. Basically the ups and downs of life and their relationship. The Best of Youth, it's an absolutely stunning piece of filmmaking. I've never seen anything like it before. It's immense. I'm telling you, it's a long, long movie. It's the longest movie on this list. Watch it over 2 nights and it'll be worth it. I mean, I don't mind a long movie, 6 hours. It sounds imposing, but people will binge Stranger Things in a day. You know what I mean? So it's not really that much of it's not that big of a hurdle to overcome. But I think that generally people think six episodes of TV is easier for them to watch than a 6-hour movie. But I'm telling you, this experience is such a rewarding watch.
Yeah. I guess people want the short form.
Yes.
Like, I want a conclusion. I want multiple. Yeah. I get it.
But this movie, it's one of the best films I've seen this century. It's one of the best Italian films made in recent memory.
Next up, number 61, we have a controversial film called Naked, starring David Thewlis, who plays Remus Lupin in the Harry Potter franchise, obviously. It's about this guy from Manchester who flees to London after violently raping a woman, and he ends up going on this odyssey in London, just kind of ranting at strangers, meeting all kinds of people like him in seedy parts of town. It's a dark film. And again, I think it's pretty controversial. Though.
Yeah, it's very controversial. And it's from Mike Leigh, the great UK filmmaker. This is one of his most powerful films. It's a film about cruelty. And it's a film about violence. And it's a film about darkness. And I don't think that films should be restricted to just a certain kind of story. And I think it's important to portray all facets of humanity in storytelling. And this character, he's not someone you're supposed to like. David Thewlis' Johnny is a piece of shit. He's terrible. He's a horrible person. But he is a person. There are people like this in the world. And so I think Mike Leigh was really pushing the boundaries of what's acceptable cinema, especially in the UK. But it's a fascinating watch. Dick Pope, the cinematographer, he's one of the UK's best DPs. He's done a ton of great stuff. But Mike Leigh's incredible talent for writing and dialogue puts him above so many other filmmakers. It's a really interesting watch. And also David Thewlis is remarkable because we've seen him play one of the most beloved characters in the Harry Potter franchise, and to see him 180-degree turn on this film, it's really fascinating.
Next up, we have at number 60, Mysterious Skin.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, this is a great indie film from 2004, directed by Greg Araki, who was really big in the indie American filmmaking back in the 1990s and 2000s, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Brady Corbett, and as well as Elizabeth Sue, about these two boys who experience shocking and strange events in their youth, but it affects them later in life. One remembers it, one doesn't remember it. One becomes a sexually adventurous prostitute, while the other falls into this reclusive fantasy of alien abduction.
Love Mysterious Skin.
Yes.
It's a great movie.
Haven't seen it in a while.
A while.
It's been a while.
Add it to your list, everyone. All right, next up we have another film from Juzo Itami, Tampopo, which I try to talk about as much as I can. It's the best food movie. It's the best one. If you like ramen, this is a movie about ramen.
Well, I had ramen last week.
And Nobuko Miyamoto, who is in Supermarket Woman, is the lead of this film. Also, Koji Yakusho's in this film. Ken Watanabe's in this film. He's like 19. It's about this woman whose husband ran a moderately successful ramen shop for years. He passes away, And then rather than selling the shop, she decides, with no knowledge about cooking ramen or running a business, to keep his business afloat and to continue on the business in his passing. However, her initial failure leads her to seek the help of 4 different men who all have specialties. One's great with design, one's great with cooking, and they also start investigating what makes great ramen and playing around with recipes and trying to see what works and what doesn't work. It's delightful. It's a great foodie movie. It will make you hungry, so make sure you watch this movie on a full stomach.
All right, moving on to In the Heat of the Night at number 58 on our list, directed by Norman Jewison, starring the great Sidney Poitier, about a man, a Philadelphia detective who's passing through a small, racially divisive Mississippi town where he is arrested, suspected for a local murder. Once he is cleared, he's asked by the locals to find the murder.
Yeah, it's a great film about the racial divide and distrusting someone from of a different background, different color. And it's a really incredible film. It's one of the best detective mysteries of all time. It's so well directed and so well acted. And the detective opposite Poitier starts out as someone who reluctantly lets him help with the investigation, but by the end of the film, he does really look to Sidney Poitier's character as like someone he can trust and rely on, and shows the power of human connection in charged times and divisive times. It's a powerful film.
He didn't even get an Oscar nomination for this film.
Unreal.
The irony.
Man.
Get it?
He won for Look Who's Coming to Dinner. But yeah, he probably should have won an Oscar for this movie too. He's great. Sidney Poitier commands the screen. When he talks, the audience watches and listens. He's got that. He had that, man.
Let's talk about Spartacus, man.
Oh yeah, baby. I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus.
Talking about the OG one from 1960, directed obviously by the great Stanley Kubrick, starring Kirk Douglas, probably one of the best epics before, the turn of the century, up there in terms of ancient history for sure. But what an excellent film. We all kind of know the story of Spartacus, a slave gladiator who leads a rebellion, and true story, obviously, great historical fiction here. But Kirk Douglas really embodies the character so well, and plus that chin is so famous.
That chin, butt chin.
The butt chin, man.
It's a massive film, and it's so expertly directed and crafted by Stanley Kubrick. I remember we watched it like a year ago, and we were both like, fucking hey, this is amazing.
It's pretty great.
Huge, huge scale. The action set pieces are mind-blowing. He never really did action again outside of war with Full Metal Jacket, but man, he know how to stage battles. This film is a display of that.
All right, moving back to Michael Haneke. We have a great film from 2001 called The Piano Teacher. This is number 56 on our list. This is about a woman who is a piano instructor, really brilliant player, who strikes up an interesting, odd relationship with one of, not a student, right? Just a young man
he becomes her student.
In that community, in the world of music.
She teaches at a prestigious music school.
But little does anyone know, she has a very, very dark secret where she's a masochist.
Yeah.
And she's obsessed with inflicting pain on herself for pleasure.
And she's sexually sadistic. And it's a really incredible contrast of this woman who's so respected in high society and who appears to have this incredible high social class. And she's an instructor in classical music. Yet she goes to small pornographic theaters. And she has really crazy taste when it comes to sexual interests. It's an incredible character portrait. One of the best character pieces ever put on film. It's might be Michael Haneke's best movie. It's really hard to rank them, but Isabelle Huppert, who is one of his frequent collaborators, this is really a huge performance for her career. There's nothing like The Piano Teacher on screen at all. Check it out.
Shocking film.
Very shocking, but it's amazing.
Next up, we have The Eight Mountains out of Italia, coming out in 2022. Very recent film on this list. And, well, it's not... It's an Italian film.
Yeah.
It takes place in the Italian Alps about this great friendship that follows 4 decades of it.
Yeah, it's kind of... It has a similar idea in terms of the best of youth, but this one's about these 2 friends who grow apart, then come back together again, and they end up teaming up to build this beautiful house in the middle of the wilderness and the trials and tribulations of life, the different directions they go on. It's a powerful film about friendship, too, and male friendship, which we don't get to see that often outside of, like, buddy comedies. But this is a very nuanced take on that, and it explores the human capacity for connection really well, and incredible contrast with the beauty of nature and the ups and downs of life.
All right, let's go on to another film. Run, Lola, Run came out in 1998. This is number 54 on our list, directed and written by Tom Tykwer. Tykwer, sorry. Tom Tykwer. I always say
Tykwer.
I always say Tykwer.
Yeah.
Tykwer, because he did Cloud Atlas, right?
Yeah,
Did the
and he's a
music-
composer, too.
Did the music for Cloud Atlas as well.
And he co-directed, yeah.
And this is a film starring Franca Potente, who we all recognize from The Bourne Identity.
Yeah.
And this is a film where she is involved with a botched money delivery, and she has 20 minutes to come up with 100,000 Deutschmarks.
Yeah, her boyfriend was supposed to deliver the money to a gangster, but he left it at a train stop or something. And so this movie actually shows choices, and the movie displays like 3 different choices that she can make to try and save her boyfriend.
And that's about $5,000.
Yeah. Oh, it's not that much.
USD.
Okay.
US dollars. Still, I mean,
Yeah,
20
it's
minutes
really-
to come up with $5,000.
Yeah, that's cool. But it's an amazing setup, and it's like those books where you get to choose the path. So we get to see her carry out 3 different storylines of how she attempts to save him. It's really great.
All right, moving on to Sisters, number 53 on our list, starring Margot Kidder. This came out in 1972, directed by the great, you want to say it?
Brian De Palma, baby.
His guy, Anthony's guy.
This is his like least really celebrated film, I think, and that's why it's on this list, because even movies like Phantom of the Paradise, it's getting a lot of steam online. But Sisters is a really great slasher mystery, and I really love it. And she plays a great role. It's incredible use of split screen, great kills, great blood, great mystery, a fantastic twist, just a really funky movie. But there's really nothing in the slasher genre like Sisters.
Really funky
It
movie.
is funky.
All right, number 52 on our list from 2002, we have Russian Ark, directed by Alexander Sokurov.
So this movie is a complete one take.
This is the full one take.
This is the full one take, and it's a pure piece set amongst high society in Russia. And we get to follow this character, who is also the narrator of the film, interacting with the conflicts of the story and multiple characters and situations. Like there's an opera that gets played. There's huge ball that unfolds, and we're moving through this huge estate. And this was shot with a digital camera, high definition digital camera, because a film camera could not shoot a 100-minute long movie. The film magazine's only so long, and the longest they can make it was probably 10 minutes. And so, since this was early day cinema, while the cinematographer, Steadicam operator, was using the camera, and this is the early days of these kinds of memory cards, the hard drive had to be carried with the camera, and it was really big. At the time, it was a 100 gigabyte hard drive. And back then it was big compared to now. It's like these little tiny cards. And so there's a guy holding the hard drive behind the camera operator the entire film. And so that film was being recorded onto the hard drive. It's pretty funny, the early days of digital cinema, but it's fantastic. It's a wonder to behold in terms of the blocking and the cinematography, and so many actors and extras in this film. And they spent months working it out, and I believe they did 3 takes of the film. But they nailed it, and it's just a great feat of filmmaking.
Back to Italy, number 51 on our list, and then we'll get to our intermission and wrap up the final 50 on the list. We have La Strada, which is...
You skipped one.
Did I?
51.
I'm sorry, 51. Then, yeah, I did skip one. 51 is our last one,
Yes.
and then we'll do our intermission.
Yes.
So you already got a sneak peek. So the third man is number 51 on our list from 1949, starring Orson Welles, directed by Carol Reed.
This is a great film noir about a missing man. This guy's friend is missing, and people keep asking about him. They keep looking to him to find him. And I don't want to spoil too much because the movie relies heavily on a really big twist halfway through, but it is sensational. It's so well directed, great black and white photography. Orson Welles is such a movie star as well as a great director. He did not direct this, Carol Reed did, but he's phenomenal once he shows up, and it's just one of the greatest mysteries in American cinema history.
All right, let's head to our intermission, and then we'll get back and wrap up the 50 greatest films you may have never heard of. And before we continue, the very best way to support Raiders of the Lost podcast is to become a patron today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost podcast. What happens if you become a patron? You get access to weekly bonus episodes of the show. You get access to the ad-free version of every single episode. Plus, on top of that, you get perks like access to the Discord that we have, merchandise, all kinds of things. Patreon is the only reason we can do the show full-time. Thank you so much to our patrons, past, present, and future. You can also leave those 5-star ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. This helps us get seen by new people, helps us chart, helps build reputability to the show. And then 5,000 Apple ratings. I'm getting a tattoo of Anthony's choice.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully it's not too embarrassing. Also, a great way to support the show is just share us. Word of mouth is the best way for a podcast to grow. So tell everyone you know about our show. Tell everyone about this episode. If you enjoyed it, you got some new movies on your watch list. Check it out.
Sorry.
I'm not done, Anthony.
Continue.
I'm going to take my time.
This episode, of course, is sponsored by our friends at movieposters.com, the #1 place to get your posters online today. So be sure to use our promo code Raiders10 at movieposters.com to get yourself 10% off your order right now. Movieposters.com has a huge selection of pretty much every movie and TV show imaginable in their poster library, as well as all sorts of sizes, framing, and even backlighting for your poster needs. They have everything from your favorite blockbuster, comic book, Star Wars, huge movie, to classics. They'll have original prints. They'll have alternate prints, foreign films, American films, everything you can imagine. High quality prints, all sorts of sizes for your options. And we have these all over our home, decked out on the set. They're incredible, very affordable, and even more affordable when you use our promo code Raiders10 at movieposters.com to get 10% off your order right now.
All right, let's get into our intermission, Anthony. Are you ready for the movie quotes competition?
I was born ready.
Here we go. Just tell me how much he owes, and I'll pay you back. So far, it's about $1.3 million.
I started working at the church on weekends. Catch me if you can.
Yes.
You think you're the only one doing time, Derek? You think you're here all alone? You think I'm not in here with you?
Oh, what movie is this? It's a wife and a husband. Say it one more time.
You think you're the only one doing time, Derek? You think you're here all alone? You think I'm not in here with you?
I'm blanking.
It's American History X. Mother to son.
Oh, mother to son.
Not husband and wife.
Good one, man.
Yeah.
Good one.
It's when she visits him.
Yeah. All right, Anthony. Guess this movie release year. Panic Room.
1990.
I think Kristen Stewart was pretty young in 1998 because the movie came out in 2002.
Damn it.
She's probably like 3rd grade, dude.
Probably younger. What year did American History X come out?
2000.
1998.
That's funny. All right, Anthony, movie pop quiz time. You remember the Ice Age films, right?
Of course, how could I forget Ray Romano?
Now, what production company made those movies?
Who made Ice Age? I'm gonna guess DreamWorks.
Incorrect. Not DreamWorks.
I'm gonna guess 20th Century.
20th Century Fox. 20th Century Animation made the Ice Age films.
Yeah.
You got it.
Took me 2 guesses.
Yeah. I don't even... When was the last time they made an Ice Age movie?
They're making one right now.
Are they really?
They made a bunch of spin-offs that were like not theatrically released. There's a few Ice Age movies that weren't in theaters.
I think they're... Okay, so they're making Ice Age 5 right now.
Yeah, they're making it right now. Dennis Leary is a Sabretooth, remember?
Wow, there's so many of them.
Yeah, there's a ton of Ice Age movies. They never stopped.
They never did. Holy crap! They came out every 3 years until 2016.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Who directed Wall-E? He's thinking.
Fucking some Pixar guy.
Some Pixar guy.
Brad Bird.
Andrew Stanton.
The other big Pixar guy there.
All right, now it's time for Framed. So pull up.
Framed.
Pull
I
up
forgot
Framed.
we do Framed.
Pull up Framed.
Okay.
Now, don't guess until the other person's ready to guess. That way, if we get it wrong, we both get the to see the next one.
Okay, so it's a shot of a school bus approaching kids on the street.
Yeah.
All right, I have a guess.
Fucking A, I have no idea what this is. I have absolutely no idea.
We'll come up with something.
I'm guessing Summer of Sam.
I'm guessing a Bronx Tale.
All right, 1, 2, 3,
I was wrong.
submit. It is neither of those.
All right, now we have an old red convertible.
With a blonde woman in the seat. This looks like it's the UK, actually. This is definitely not. I thought it was New York at first.
No, because they're on the right side of the road.
Oh, shit, you're right. What is this?
Man, I'm stumped.
I fucking guess. What do we guess?
The red car looks so familiar. So familiar. Fucking hell, man.
I'm just gonna guess To Catch a Thief, which is not right.
I'm gonna guess.
Actually, I can't even guess that. I don't know. I'm guessing. I don't know.
Damn, what is this movie? I don't even have a guess for this.
Oh, is this It's a musical.
Is it
West Side Story? No. Oh, it's Hairspray.
Hairspray?
Is it Hairspray?
No, Hairspray's too new. This is like an old-looking movie.
Got it. Hairspray.
Is it Hairspray?
Hairspray. Yep. Got it. Wow, that was tough. That was tough. It took 4 guesses.
Oh man, yeah, they do a good
Hairspray.
The shots they showed, it looked like an old classic film.
This is the Hairspray that what's his name? The filmmaker. What's his fucking name?
Oh, this is the old one. Because the new one Travolta's in, right?
Yes. This is the original one by John Waters. John Waters made this one.
Gotcha.
Wow, that was a tough one, Framed.
That was tough.
Wow. Holy shit. I'm glad I got it though. I would be pissing myself if I went through a Framed without getting it right.
Yeah, me too.
That was probably the hardest Framed I've ever seen.
Pretty tough. All right, Anthony. Do we have any haters this week? Any unsubscribes?
Oh yeah, you bet your ass we do. All right, first up we got Third Coast Ghost on our Alien Romulus episode. Uploading this 45 minutes ago. Unsubscribed. This is an unsubscribe, but it made me laugh. It was a Top Gun clip, and MKM wrote, "Buzzcut guy is 100% correct."
Buzzcut guy.
Talking about me.
Buzzcut guy.
Alberto on our movie news. You guys are so fun and genuine about your love for movies in Hollywood. It's adorable. Unsubscribed.
Thanks,
pal.
Anthony did buzz all his hair off.
Yeah, I buzzed it all off. Yeah.
You okay over there, man?
I'm great. I always buzz it.
No, I'm kidding.
Travis Ryan on movie news. The contention between the proper GIF versus the abomination that Anthony... the contention between the proper GIF versus the abomination that Anthony promoted, GIF, almost had me unsubscribed.
Thank you.
Birthday batter on movie news. Wow, you guys didn't offer us any of the drugs you clearly took before recording.
That was a silly episode.
Unsubscribed. Evan Moirana. I just want to have a drink with you guys and talk about movies. If we don't, then I'll have to. Unsubscribe.
Maybe someday, pal.
Keith Taylor, Paul Reiser, unsubscribed. Lonesome Ghosts in our Twisters episode. They should have zoomed into the kiss and shown tongue twisters. Unsubscribed listener of 24 hours.
That's pretty funny.
That's a good one.
That's pretty funny.
Tongue twisters. K989 on our Alien episode. You pronounced Giger's name correctly. Unsubscribe.
For once, we pronounced the name correctly.
That one cracked me up. And then we got Nick. I don't know why, but I can only comment once on Spotify, so I'm going to reply here on Instagram. The episode's not working for me. Not sure if you guys fixed it, but I'm listening to it now, so that's all that matters. Good thing it started working, because I was about to unsubscribe.
Oh, man.
Nick was having an issue where after an ad played, it would not play our episode anymore.
Oh, it's odd.
But,
But sometimes it gets bluey for some people.
Yeah, I guess bluey every
There's
once
really
in a
not
while.
much we can do about it because it's up to the platforms to just disperse it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad it eventually started working for you. Sometimes it just takes a few hours.
And Spotify, it's amazing they have the new comments ability, but it can only be one comment per side. So a listener can only comment once, and we can only reply once. So there's no thread that can happen.
Oh.
So I can't like reply. We weren't able to reply to each other to fix the problem.
It's still a fun feature.
It's an
for
amazing
comments,
feature.
So
I
we
love
can reply to you on Spotify.
All right. Next up, Levy on our Letterboxd recap. There's a producers whose name is Dick Bush, and you didn't comment on it. Unsubscribe.
Yeah, I remember saying that in the episode. I'm like, I shouldn't touch that.
Austin Sylvie on World War Z. In regards to what movies you're going to watch on your way to Greece, how could you not watch Grease? Unsubscribe. Also 5 stars.
Grease, the Travolta Grease.
One of our clips, Legal Truth wrote, neat, unsubscribed. I like the simplicity. I really like the simplicity of it. And that's it so far for unsubscribes this week. Thanks, everybody, for sending those in.
Okay, Anthony. Do you have a streaming recommendation for this episode?
The entire Paul Thomas Anderson film collection is on Criterion Channel. So go watch all of his movies. If you have not, like we said, Hard 8 is one of his lesser-known films. Licorice Pizza. Boogie Nights. Watch Boogie Nights. It's on Criterion Channel.
All right, I recommend watching Zero Dark 30, which right now is on the streaming platform called Hulu. Ever heard of it?
Streaming platform called Hulu. Thanks for that. I wasn't aware of the streaming platform called Hulu.
Yeah, it's owned by Disney. All right, let's get back into our list of the 100 greatest movies you have never seen. We've done 100 through 51. Anthony has finished his Prime Energy drink. That's why he's wired.
Watermelon strawberry.
That explains a lot, guys. I was wondering
yeah.
where Anthony was getting this insane energy. Look at him go. Look at him go.
I love world cinema.
Crush it. Yeah, crush that can. All right, it's too much. It's going to deafen people.
You told me to do it.
No, I didn't say crush it up to your microphone. I said just crush it.
That's true. You did not.
You started to turn
You
this
did
into a loud ASMR episode.
in a lard.
We've been talking for a while, man. Sometimes these episodes, you don't know where your brain is at times. All right, let's talk about La Strada, which is an Italian film, also known as The Road, if you translated it into English.
Thank you, James, for that wonderful, illustrious.
You're welcome. It's actually a movie that reminds me of Nightmare Alley in a lot of ways. It's about this woman who's
Carney's
taken over by this entertainer, this traveling entertainer, and is met with abuse.
It's a fascinating film directed by Fellini, and his wife is actually the lead. She was the lead in a couple of his films, Giulietta Messina. And this is a wonderful physical performance from her. And it's also one of the best comedic performances. She ends up playing like a mime clown, traveling, she basically has no choice to join this small group of carnies who go around villages putting on small performances. There's just a handful of them for handouts. And she's basically stuck in this because she has nowhere else to go. There's no way for her to support herself, so she basically has to go there. And the guy who's in charge, and he's the lead, he's a terrible person, an abuser. But it's a great contrast of tragedy with comedy, and an amazing comedic performance from her. It's one of the best all times, and it's one of Fellini's early masterworks.
All right. Moving on to number 49, we have an Audrey Hepburn film, Charade, from 1963, where she is out in Paris and she's being courted by a bunch of men who want her dead husband's fortune.
So, did you ever know how valuable stamps were? I had no idea until this film. So her husband had this collection of extremely valuable stamps worth like millions because they're like collector's historical item stamps. And they go missing, and a bunch of different people want to know where they are. She doesn't even know about the stamps. She's like, guys, what are you talking about, stamps? I don't know anything about stamps. And so she's set on this whirlwind mystery, and Cary Grant's character, Peter, joins her to help her. And this film does not go where you expect it to go. It's got great twists, very suspenseful. It's a fantastic film, and Audrey didn't do that many thrillers, but when she did do them, like this one and like Wait Until Dark, she's really fantastic in them.
Moving on. Number 48. Really, really interesting film from Lars von Trier starring Nicole Kidman and Paul Bettany called Dogville. This came out in 2003.
So this film is wholly unique and original. So they filmed the entire movie in this huge, huge empty soundstage with no walls. And it takes place about Nicole Kidman plays this woman who's new to a town, and it's like a suburban neighborhood where all the houses are next to each other, but they didn't build them. And so what happens is they actually drew on the floor of the soundstage the outlines of streets, of the sidewalks, of the homes, of the outlines of like what a bedroom was and a bathroom. So that was really what the actors used in their performances, and they had some pieces of furniture. And it's an unbelievable experiment in filmmaking that really works. It sounds weird, but 5 minutes into it, once you accept what the world is, you don't even think about it. And then eventually, it's amazing. Your imagination starts putting up the walls, and your imagination starts adding the props that aren't there.
But there are some props that
Yes,
are like interior props, shelves, chairs,
people
tables.
sit on stuff and interact with things, but there's no walls at all in the film. And it's a masterwork. It's a long film. It's about 3 hours long, but it's incredible and it's disturbing. And it's basically the story is about a community turning on one person because of lies and because they're an outsider. And eventually this community grows sour and rotten to Nicole Kidman's character to the point where they allow terrible things to happen to her. And they start doing terrible things to her. And it shows the dark facets of humanity and also groupthink and social influence of wanting to stick with the herd, even if you don't completely agree with them, and how one person can fall victim to an entire society.
Moving on to,
Excused.
a Luca Guadagnino film, I Am Love, came out in 2009 starring Tilda Swinton, about a woman from Russia who follows her husband to Italy, becomes part of a wealthy family, has some kids, but is unfulfilled, and then strikes up a romance with a young man at a restaurant.
Tilda speaks 100% Italian in this movie. It's their first collaboration. Their second collaboration. And then they made a Suspiria remake after this. It's a powerful film. And so not only is she seeking the intimacy of a person who isn't her husband, but the family's reeling from the death of one of her sons. He drowned in a pool. And it's a fascinating portrait of grief, of love, of intimacy. Incredible performance from Tilda. It's one of her best. And then the visual flair of Luca and his team crafting just an incredible piece of cinema with I Am Love. It's a tremendous movie.
Next up at number 46 from Japan, we have Nobody Knows, a tragic story about a 12-year-old girl who's named Akira, who must care for all of her younger siblings after her mother abandons them and shows no signs of returning.
Akira's a boy.
I'm sorry, boy.
Yeah. So he's got a younger sister and a younger brother, and their mother abandons them because she's dating this new guy who lives in a different part of the country. And so she basically leaves them in their apartment for months and months and months and months, and basically is not coming back. So it's up to Akira to take care of his little siblings, but he himself is a kid. And you can't rely on a child to carry out the responsibilities of an adult. And eventually that all ends horribly, and they fall into a terrible situation. It's one of the most tragic films I've ever seen. It's incredibly powerful. One of the better recent films out of Japan this century. Definitely check out Nobody Knows.
Next up, we have Akira Kurosawa film, number 45 on our list, from 1952. We have Ikiru. It's about this bureaucrat who's trying to find meaning in his life after he discovers that he has terminal cancer.
And Ikiru translates to live. And this film is expression of how to live a life. And this man who's spent his entire life being a boss and obsessed with work, working every day and thinking that what he's doing matters and has meaning. But he realizes after the cancer diagnosis, everything he's done in life has meant nothing, and he's never truly lived. And it's in grappling with the terms of living life with meanings. And it's a wonderful lead performance. It's one of the most powerful films I've ever seen, and it's Akira Kurosawa's one of his masterworks in filmmaking. Ikiru is just an absolute flat-out heart-wrenching drama.
Next up, we have a very intense film from 2006 starring Brad Pitt and Kate Blanchett, as well as Gael Garcia Bernal. From 2006, we have Babel, directed by Alejandro Iñárritu. This is a powerful film. This couple's taking a vacation to kind of repair their marriage in Morocco, but it goes horribly wrong when one of them is killed.
And it's a fascinating layered portrait of connected storylines, which were super hot in the 2000s. The interconnected parallels and random characters who
crash.
Yeah, it was a common thread in a trend in Hollywood at that time. But Babel's the best one, and Brad Pitt's phenomenal in it. Kate Blanchett's phenomenal in it. Gael Garcia Bernal is amazing. Also, Koji Akusha, the great Japanese actor from Cure and Perfect Days, is also fantastic in it. It's a very tough watch. You've never seen these actors like this before, but it's a fascinating tale of interconnected stories and also cultures. It's a powerful, powerful piece of cinema.
Oh, we have an excellent film next. Number 43, we have Lady Snowblood from 1973, directed by Toshiya Fujita. This is another very influential film for Quentin Tarantino, specifically, obviously, with The Bride and the Kill Bill franchise. It's about this young woman who's trained from youth to become a deadly assassin because she's seeking revenge on these men who killed her family, killed her mother and her
It's
father.
not just men, it's a group of criminals.
Yeah, group.
Yeah.
And she gets vengeance in bloody fashion, and it's incredible, shocking, disturbing. This movie's absolutely epic.
It is, Kill Bill wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Lady Snowblood. You know what I mean? That's how important it was to the inspiration of that film that everyone loves. But this is really the first one that did it. He even used some of the same music in this film. All right, next up, at number 42, we have another oneer, the French film Victoria, which is another film that is a real, true, unedited one take. The entire film takes place over one night with a woman named Victoria who falls in with a group of criminals. And it's incredible. We start in a club and we traverse different parts of the city. We're going on a motorcycle. We're getting involved in these very intense, violent situations. It's a fascinating piece of filmmaking. I highly recommend checking it out. It's just a crazy piece of visceral artistry. Great lead performance. But like many other films, the oneers become a popular thing. But Russian Ark and Victoria are the true films it's just a real, true oneer, which is so cool to behold. Once this movie starts, you're just like on bated breath waiting for it to conclude.
All right, next up is a film we mentioned earlier at number 41. We have Brian De Palma's Blowout from 1981, starring John Travolta, who is a sound mixer, sound recordist, and engineer and Foley artist for film. And he's out capturing Foley, some night sounds in the middle of the night for a film, just capturing ambience, until he witnesses a car crashing into a lake. And as he's going through his footage and sounds, he realizes that there was a gun fired that blew out a tire, and he gets embroiled in a murder investigation that he's the only one that believes happened. So he's trying to put all the pieces together of this murder happening with video reel footage, film reel footage, and sound that he put together. It's awesome. There's great sequences of splicing film and sound together, like old school methods. It's a great film about filmmaking in a lot of ways, and it's got a great ending.
Now that's a scream. John Lithgow is great.
Yeah.
And Nancy Allen's awesome in it too. All right, next up at number 40, we have Almodovar's Pain and Glory. One of his more recent films came out in 2019. It's also one of his most powerful, starring Antonio Banderas, who Almodovar basically discovered in the early 90s. And he plays an aging film director who he's crashing down mentally and physically. And He's coming to terms with his life, and he's reflecting on the choices he made and whether or not he led a happy life. He's highly successful, famous around the world as a director, but all of that kind of means nothing, especially in regards to his life with his mother, where we see in flashbacks him growing up with his mother, played by Penelope Cruz, another Almodovar regular, and seeing the difficulties of his childhood and his mother, and what she had to deal with his father, her husband, contrasted with the director reconnecting with his old boyfriend, who he dated for several years in Spain when they were young, realizing that this man now has a family, just lived a completely new life, and he's just coming to terms with the fact that, did I live a good life? And success doesn't matter, ultimately. It's a powerful film, deeply moving, and it's probably, I would say, Antonio Banderas' greatest performance, too.
At number 39, we have a Terrence Malick film from 1973. We have Badlands, starring Sissy Spacek and Martin Sheen. Sissy Spacek plays this young, impressionable teenager who gets courted by this greaser, like a older guy played by Martin Sheen, who eventually kills her father and takes her away from him. And they go on this journey. He's obviously the ringleader, committing a series of crimes and murders across the Badlands until, obviously, the authorities start to try and catch up to them.
Such a great film.
Yeah. It's really, really good.
Incredible movie. We have a film here from Bong Joon-ho that you might not have seen, called Mother, which is easily one of his best, and it's like, this guy's filmography, it's like PTA, it's like, all he does is make incredible movies. And Mother is a really gut-wrenching drama about this woman who's a widow, and she takes care of her mentally handicapped son, and she sells herbs and medicines to get by. However, in the village they live in, a young girl is found murdered, and some circumstantial evidence points to her son being the culprit. And he's arrested immediately, wrongfully. He's innocent. And she's desperate to try and clear his name, so she takes it upon herself to try to prove his innocence. And it shows in another film showing the broken justice system and police corruption, as well as incredibly high stakes for a mother trying to protect her son. It's a remarkable performance from the lead actress, Kim Hee-ja, and Won Bin is fantastic as well. But this is an incredible early Bong Joon-ho movie. Highly recommend checking it out.
All right, next up on our list, number 37, we have Black Narcissus.
Fuck yeah.
1947, all the way back in the day, about a bunch of nuns who are trying to establish a convent in the Himalayas. However, they are being clashed with ill weather, ill behaviors, despite having good intentions.
Yeah, it's one of the most beautiful films ever made as well, and it's from the same director, Michael Powell, of The Red Shoes, and he did this one on his own. Eric Pressburger helped with this one as well. They co-directed it. But it's one of the most beautifully shot films, Technicolor finish and print, which are still to this day some of the most beautiful photography of all time in cinema history. Incredible use of color contrasts of sunlight and moonlight. And it's one of the most famous uses of matte paintings, of the backgrounds, of the mountain ranges, of even matte paintings that the actors stand next to with overhead shots that perfectly blend in with the set pieces, making the film look much larger than it is. And it's an incredible use of color from not just the Technicolor prints, but also from the production design and costume design. And it's a film about spirituality versus religion and the moral corruption. And the nuns are sent to this high up place to start educating. But there's something about the air, there's something about the spirituality of the place that, and also the temptation of a local man that many of them are attracted to, that makes them all struggle to maintain their vows as nuns. It's an incredible, incredible piece of filmmaking.
Okay, next up we have, from 2012, Rust and Bone. Written and directed by Jacques Audiard, starring Marion Cotillard and Matthias Schoenaerts, who you recognize from from Bullhead, which in Red Sparrow.
Yeah.
He's done another
He's
movie
done a ton
on
of
this,
stuff,
and
yeah.
The Danish Girl. So you
Far
definitely
from the
recognize
Manning
him.
crowd, he's great.
And so he's put in charge of a young son he hardly knows. However, he flees Belgium for Antibes to live with his sister and her husband as a family.
And Marion Cotillard actually plays a woman who works at like a SeaWorld place and whose leg is bitten off by a killer whale.
Yeah, that's right.
And so these two people who are both very broken connect and find love with one another. He's also a bare-knuckle brawler underground for money. It's an incredible film. It's one of the most powerful relationship movies I've ever seen in my life. It will make you cry and burst with love.
You showed me that movie years ago. Yeah, that's right. Next up, we have an Alfred Hitchcock film, which got remade 4 years ago.
Oh, my God.
Starring Lily James and Armie Hammer. But
Why?
we're talking about the original from all the way back in 1940 called Rebecca.
Rebecca is one of the great Gothic romances, and it's probably Alfred Hitchcock's most underappreciated film in the modern era. It's a perfect piece of filmmaking. It's so damn good. It's about this woman named Rebecca who falls in love with this very high-class, successful man. She's just basically a servant and an assistant to another woman. And this guy, he's like, I want to marry you. Come marry me and move into my huge home. And she's just like up in arms and she can't believe it. Things are too good to be true because they are too good to be true. And I won't spoil what happens in this film, but it is an incredible piece of cinema. It's a famous novel, and this is the great adaptation of it.
Next up, we have Shortcuts from 1993, which is number 34 on our list, directed by Robert Altman.
Shortcuts is a great Altman film about another series of interconnected storylines. A fantastic cast. Julianne Moore, Downey Jr.'s in it. Jack Lemmon, who's in the apartment. Tim Robbins, Andy McDowell, Matthew Modine, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Chris Penn, Madeline Stowe. This movie's fucking insane. But it's about 6 storylines. I think it's 6 or 5. And they're all connected. I love the movie. He's got an amazing knack for how to use the camera. Great energy in the filmmaking. And each character has so much personality, and they're all so different from one another. And just to see how they all do interact with one another, these stories that we think are intricately their own, but then they all become one overarching narrative. It's a great piece of film.
Next up, we have an awesome crime film directed by Sidney Lumet in 2007, written by Kelly Masterson. Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, starring Philip Seymour Hoffman, Ethan Hawke, Albert Finney, Marissa Tomei, Michael Shannon, Amy Ryan, and Rosemary Harris, about these two brothers, played by Hoffman and Hawke, who the older one, Hoffman, is sort of the successful one, but is in need of money, and he comes up with a brilliant heist, according to him, where their parents own a jewelry shop, and they plan to rob it. So they have Ethan Hawke and someone else are going to rob the jewelry store. They think it's a foolproof plan. Nobody's going to get hurt. They know the ins and outs of the business. They know where the vault is. They know everything about it, and they think it's going to be an easy job. Nobody gets hurt. However, everything goes wrong, and their mother gets killed during the heist, and it's the aftermath and fallout of their relationships, which are all connected because there are affairs going on between each other's wives, and it's a shit show, and of course the family is crumbling apart because of this decision.
It's Lumet's last film.
Awesome movie.
Great film. All right, next up we have one of the few comedies on this list, and make no mistake, this is one of the best comedies of the century.
So good.
The Death of Stalin, which came out in 2017, directed by Armando Iannucci. This is about Joseph Stalin's death, and it takes place just in a matter of a few hours, this entire movie. And so basically Stalin dies, or the cast think he dies. Now, this shows the power of the hierarchy in that world and in that group of people where Stalin is in bed, but he just won't wake up. And all of his cronies, all these very powerful men in his government, they're all like, is he dead? Are we sure he's dead? What should we do? Nobody really knows what to do because they all lived in such fear of Stalin that they don't want to make the wrong decision because out of fear of their own death. Because there's a place where if you make one wrong move, you're executed. And so it's an incredible comedy where all these characters are trying to figure out what the hell is going on and what should we do. Like, they're not sure if they should even check if he's breathing.
They're afraid to even go in the room.
It's so funny. Steve Buscemi, Jason Isaacs,
When Jason Isaacs takes off his jacket, he's got like 50 medals for war. It's so funny.
It's amazing. It's a great cast, and it's very specific comedy, but man, it works if you like it.
It sure does. Next up on our list at number 31, we have Rome, Open City, came out in 1945, directed by Roberto Rossellini.
I can break this down. I just watched it.
You just
last
watched
night.
it? Break down, bro.
Rome Open City is about the German invasion of Italy after Mussolini's basically failed attempts to be allies with them. And then it's about a group of rebellious Italians trying to fight back against the tyranny of the German soldiers, as well as the black shirts, the Italian black shirts of Mussolini. And it's an amazing cast of characters. It's so powerful. And it's about just everyday Italians who hate what's happening in their country. They are completely powerless, and many of them are trying to figure out ways to fight back and rebel. And it's just an incredible piece of filmmaking from Rossellini. It's a really important story that should be told, and people need to watch movies like this. It's also one of the early films of neorealism in Italy after during the aftermath of World War II. The cities were being rebuilt, and a lot of films came out depicting the stories of that time.
Let's move on to another Dardenne Brothers film. We have Rosetta, which is a powerful film about this young girl, about 18 years old, who lives with her alcoholic mother, and she will do literally anything to find a job and maintain a job. She starts working, or tries to start working at a waffle stand, which she first meets a guy that works there. He's kind of courting her. He's excited about her. She comes around to the waffle stand until she starts working at the waffle stand and then rats him out of the job because he's stealing and selling waffles of his own to make more money. Mm-hmm. And then she becomes the runner of the waffle stand. But things don't work out for her. Consistently, she is met with terrible situations. She's met with a lot of bad luck. But she will literally do anything to maintain a job, almost to the extent of potentially murdering somebody or not saving somebody from a dangerous situation. So she's just full of desperation. She will do anything to make money.
It's a really gut-wrenching, powerful tale of survival and of someone who really has no way of supporting themselves, how desperate you are to just find a job. It's just an incredible piece of filmmaking. Next up, we have La Dolce Vita from Fellini again. This is a really great film starring Marcello Mastroianni, one of his regulars. And it gets a little less attention from his films like 8.5 and La Strada, but La Dolce Vita is a fascinating character study. It's very entertaining, it's stylish, it's funny. Marcello plays a journalist who he's struggling to deal with his wife who has become like a prescription drug addict. He's struggling with what he's doing, wandering aimlessly in this city as a journalist reporting on the news. And eventually he becomes obsessed, like everyone else, when an American starlet visits Rome for the premiere of her upcoming film. And he somehow manages to swoon her in a little bit of a way and spends as much time as he can trying to pursue her. And this is a really big film in Italian culture of showing, women in such a sexual way and showing intimacy like this, and it really broke through the standard traditions of Italian culture of the time. And so it was massive for the culture.
Moving on to an insanely influential film, Les Samourai, which came out in 1967, starring the great Alain Delon, written and directed by Jean-Pierre Melville. This is one of those OG cool loner movies about an assassin who is carrying out an assassination attempt. He gets seen, and he's basically lying low, trying to provide an alibi for his whereabouts at the time as he's being investigated, as well as many men around that were picked up on the streets after the murder occurred. Mm-hmm. He's trying to clear his name in a lot of ways. But this is like that OG loner cinema kind of thing. Of this guy is just...
He is me.
Beyond cool. He's me. He's like the original Gosling. It's like very similar to Drive. A loner who's involved with dark, seedy things, but there's something about him. He's so cool, so suave, doesn't say a lot of words. He's just very calculated and very purposeful in his actions. Great third act, but all around just an excellent, and very influential film.
Incredible cinematography, too. Just unbelievable camera work and production and lighting. It's up there for all time. Absolutely. All right, next up we have another Haneke movie.
Oh my God.
Benny's Video. So imagine Two parents found out their son murdered a girl, and they did everything they could to cover it up. That's what this movie is. It's an incredible tale about morality and about protecting your kin even when they do something terrible. And so this boy, he kills a girl who's a friend of his from school. When the parents find out and discover it, because he just put the body in his closet, the film shows what they do to try and cover it up. And should they cover it up? And it's an amazing story. It's unpredictable. Has an amazing, shocking ending that you don't see coming.
Crazy.
And this movie's ending, it'll leave you just like shaken. Like, I cannot believe that's what happened. And it's a powerful film. It's about violence. It's about murder. It's about darkness. But it's also about protection and kinship and family. And what does that mean? How far does that go? It's a wonderful, wonderful, weird, dark, twisted movie, like all of his are.
Number 26 on our list from Germany, we have The Lives of Others, which came out all the way in 2006. Actually, not that long ago.
This is the Oscar winner for Best Foreign Language Film that year. So it tells the tale of this guy who has been tasked with recording and surveilling this couple who live in an apartment, and he becomes growing so invested in them that he starts breaking the boundary of what his assignment is. And it's a terrific lead performance. It's a really fascinating movie.
All right, number 25 on our list. Wow, we're almost done, guys. We got a quarter left. From 1960, we have La Ventura.
This is another Antonioni film. He did Blow Up, which is one of the earlier films on the list. And this is an incredible piece of Italian filmmaking. It's his cinematography and his directing is so patient. And it's a film about a group of friends with conflicts between them. They go to this volcanic island for like a day trip, and one of the women goes missing. And it's essentially the fallout. Nobody can find her. Nobody knows what happened to her. They don't know who to suspect or what to suspect happened. And it's basically this chaos that ensues when one of the friend group goes missing. And it's an incredible mystery film.
Oh, we have a banger next. We have at number 24 from Alejandro Iñárritu, we have Amores Perros starring Gael Garcia Bernal. This is one of those intertwining storylines where these three stories of these three characters are connected from this terrible car crash that happens in Mexico. And we have a supermodel actress. We have Guy Garcia Bernal, who plays a poor guy who starts dogfighting with his dog, amateur dogfighting. And then we have this derelict sort of homeless assassin hitman. They're all connected in these storylines. It's a hard movie to watch, especially if you like dogs and you don't want violence to animals. Of course, it's a different country. I'm sure a lot of it was done with stuffed animals or what. But there's a lot of dog fighting in this movie. So if you can't handle that kind of stuff, maybe not watch this movie. But outside of that, this is a sensational film. Really brilliant storytelling. Really great filmmaking. All these stories connect in different ways. The supermodel has a horrific accident, which ruins her career as it just was starting to hit its peak. She has a tragic incident, but they're all trying to find... She's trying to find love with the man she's with. They're all trying to find something else, and it's an awesome movie. I watched it for the first time, I think, last year, and it blew me away big time.
Next up at number 23, another Haneke film. There's so many on here, because I just think that Michael Haneke is the least talked about filmmaker of our time outside of Europe. And I think that if you watch more of his films, he will become one of your favorite directors, like he is mine. Amour, which is his highest regarded film. 95 Metacritic score, 7.9 IMDb. This also won the Oscar for foreign language film. This is about a couple that are dealing with age. And this man, George, he is a retired, highly successful classical pianist who now lives a very comfortable life with his wife, Anne. However, Anne starts behaving in odd ways. She keeps forgetting things. She forgets who he is. She disappears sometimes, and it slowly, we learn that she's dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's. And so this film is about Georgia dealing and overcoming and trying to deal with the fact that his wife is disappearing in every way he knows. It's so tragic, but it's so powerful because This is something that this is a constant in life, and it's guaranteed in life. We're all going to age. We're all going to die. And many people go through Alzheimer's and dementia. And if anyone has experience with that in their lives, this is the most powerful film that deals with that. It's Haneke's most personal film and his most tragic film. It has nothing to do with anything sadistic or violent or anything like that. So it's quite a step in a different direction for him as a filmmaker. What's interesting is it could be his best piece of filmmaking, and it's really about a man trying to keep his wife alive as best he can and trying to maintain her comfort in her time of suffering as she's nearing the end of her life. It's just a wonderful movie about life.
Next up, we have a movie I haven't seen in a while.
Oh, yeah.
We have Nicholas Winding Refn again on this list, 2009, Valhalla Rising, starring Mads Mikkelsen, who plays this sort of Viking warrior with supernatural powers with one eye. He's been a captor, and he's been captured and been a prisoner of someone for quite a while. This takes place in around like 1000 A.D. He's soon freed from this captor by the help of this young boy, and they are set off on this journey after they board a Viking ship. It's a great reflection meditation on mankind. It's not the sort of Viking movie you think you'd see in terms of like big Viking battles or anything like that. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty small cast for the most parts, but it's really moving. It's beautifully, gorgeously shot, and just an awesome kick-ass film.
And Mads doesn't say a single word in it.
I don't think so.
I think he goes through the whole film without saying anything, if I remember correctly. It's a great film. It's got some good violence and gore, but it's more of an introspective look at that world and about humanity and life. But it's a fascinating piece of filmmaking from Refn. Okay, next up, we got at number 21, out of Brazil, The Lead Squad, starring Wagner Moura, who you just saw in Civil War. He's the captain of Special Forces of Police in Brazil, who takes in a couple recruits, and they take on the most violent neighborhood in the area. This is one of the best action movies ever made, and the sequel as well is just as good. Elite Squad 2 is awesome as well. This movie is brutal, it's high octane, it's fierce, it's insane action, and it's so goddamn entertaining. It's one of the most badass movies in the action genre. Highly recommend checking out Elite Squad. It'll absolutely knock your socks off.
What if I'm wearing 2 pairs of socks?
It'll knock both pairs off, man.
Ooh, I'm excited about that.
They'll go flying.
All right, next up we have Ida. It came out in 2013. This is number 20 on our list from Paweł Pawlowski.
Paweł Pawlowski, yeah. He's a great Polish filmmaker. He's, in my opinion, one of the best filmmakers working right now because of Ida, and then because of another film on this list, which we'll get into in a little bit. But this is a fascinating tale about the past, and this young woman, she's training to become a nun, and her vows are set to take place in a week. And before she does that, her aunt shows up to take her on a visit and to learn about her past and her mother. They learn they're traveling to where her mother grew up to investigate more about her, and they learn that her mother had a dark past, and her father is not who they expected to be. And it's about confrontation with Nazi Germany and the remnants of that era. This movie does not take place during that era. It's 1962, but it has a lot to do with the occupation of Poland by Germany in that war, and basically the aftermaths of that. And Ida is a beautiful tale about freedom, about choice, about religion, about violence, and about coming to terms with tragedy. It's really one of the best pieces of filmmaking too of that year. In 2013, it was nominated for an Oscar. I don't think it won anything, but also it's got a great lead performance. But it has some of the most profound filmmaking by Pawlowski in it.
Sure does.
All right, next up, at number 19, we're in the top 20. Number 19, we have Fish Tank from director Andrea Arnold out of the UK, which is, in our opinion, one of the best coming-of-age films of the century. It's about this young girl. She's troubled. She lives in a terrible area. She is a mom who doesn't really care for her, and she's trying to get out of this difficult situation of this life of poverty.
She likes to dance.
She loves to dance, and her goal is she's going to enter this dance competition to win some money. She also befriends another teenage boy nearby, but her mother strikes up a relationship with a new man, played by Michael Fassbender, and he starts to take advantage of her as well. It's about abuse, it's about independence, and it's about trying to break free from the chains that someone like her is born into. It's an incredible, incredible film. Couldn't recommend Fish Tank enough.
Next up, we have at number 18 a Spike Lee joint. We have The 25th Hour. What an excellent film starring the great Edward Norton, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Barry Pepper, and Rosario Dawson. Edward Norton's the lead. He plays a guy who's been charged for drugs, and he's going to jail in a day, but he's going to spend the last day of his life sort of on this odyssey in a lot of ways about his past, reflecting on his relationships with his friends, and doing it with his two best friends, played by Barry Pepper and Philip Seymour Hoffman, to sort of prepare himself for jail, as well as to reflect on the actions of his past. And it's a powerful movie. It's moving. It's got a great ending, great finale. But man, so well directed.
It's awesome. It's such a good movie, and I think it really flies under the radar for Spike Lee movies. I never see people talk about it really at all. Next up, at number 17, we have Best Picture winner Marty, which came out all the way back in 1955. I watched this movie for the first time early this year and was absolutely blown away by it. I was aware of the film, ironically, because of Quiz Show, the movie we talked about earlier, because one of the questions on Quiz Show was what film won Best Picture in 1955. And Turturro's character, he's watching the TV. He's like, I know that. It's Marty. It's my favorite film. I knew that. And so that was my first ever semblance of like a knowledge of what Marty was. But Marty is really, it's one of the best romance movies. It's about this guy. He's very different from your typical leading man. He's kind of a nobody, and he meets this woman, Clara, and he likes her a lot, but nobody else likes her. It's because she's not that beautiful, and she's very plain, and she isn't interesting. And so even though he has this great connection with her, his friends and his relatives denounce her. His friends are like, what are you going to date her for? Oh my God, there's so many better girls out there. And his family are like, she's not good enough for you. But he's just constantly pulled to her, and he's going crazy. His family's driving him nuts, and his friends are driving him nuts. And he's coming to terms with the fact that this is what he wants. He wants her. And so he shouldn't care about what everybody else thinks. He should really pursue the love that he feels in his heart for this woman that nobody else is accepting. It's such a great movie, and it's just an incredible film and story about love. I really adore Marty.
Love. Next up, we have Joint Security Area, a.k.a. JSA, from Park Chan-wook, all the way in 2000. Early film from Park. This is about a shooting that occurs at the North-South Korean border DMZ that leaves 2 North Korean soldiers dead, and a couple of detectives and investigators from Sweden are brought in to discover what actually happened.
It's a great movie. I haven't seen it forever,
Me
but
neither.
It's so goddamn good.
I honestly forgot about it.
Next up at number 15, we have The English Patient from director Anthony Minghella, who made this right before he did Talented Mr. Ripley. This stars Julia Pinos, Willem Dafoe, Kristen Scott Thomas, and then Ralph Fiennes in the lead role. And so what happens is Julia Pinos is an Italian nurse, and she's taking care of wounded soldiers, and a man's brought to her who's been like completely burned. And he's old, but in order for him to, he's going to die. So she decides, rather than continuing her journey with the caravan of soldiers that she's basically working with, she's going to comfort this man in his last hours. And so she sets him up in this broken down home that's been half ruined. And she's basically tending to his wounds and comforting him while he dies. And while he's in bed, he's telling her the story of his life. And it flashed back to Willem Dafoe, young and hot Willem Dafoe now, not old and extra crispy. Ralph Fiennes, I mean. Not extra crispy Ralph Fiennes. And
extra crispy? You always call old people crispy.
No, he's burned.
Burned?
Yeah, in this movie, he's burned.
I'm sorry, because you called someone old crispy a couple weeks ago.
No, because they were burned too.
No, it's like an old person. You're like the crispy.
No, I said it was about Aegon Targaryen. He called him crispy. Anyways. He's a landscape mapper for the English army in Africa. And so in this time in the flashbacks, he's working for the army to map out Africa. And he begins an affair with a married English woman who's married to a very powerful man. And it's an incredible romance, forbidden love, great scope, remarkable filmmaking, great set design. Him and Kristen Scott Thomas have so much charisma and chemistry together. It's a really powerful story about love. This won Best Picture and was nominated for a ton of awards. It's one of Ralph Fiennes' greatest accomplishments as an actor as well.
Next up, we have Elephant.
Oh, man.
From Gus Van Sant. This is a dark movie, potentially tough watch for a lot of people. It came out in 2003, based loosely off the Columbine high school shooting murders. And it follows the lives of several students at this high school, their daily routine, basically. Getting up in the morning, getting ready for school, going to school, and being at school. However, two of the students are planning a mass shooting and shows their preparations while juxtaposing everyone else's preparations for getting to school.
Great way of putting it.
And how they're prepping weapons, they're getting all their gear together, they make love in the shower, and this is sort of like their finale of life. Like, we're going out guns blazing, we're gonna go to school and shoot it up and kill as many people as possible. And what's great about this film is it sort of just still leaves the question of why. That question of why did that happen? Why is it happening? Is so prominent and it's so disturbing. But Gus Van Sant really puts you in the shoes of the students in every regard. Whether you're in the shoes of the shooters, you're in the shoes of the students trying to escape, you're the students trying to hide, or the students getting killed. It's terrible.
Yeah, what's so powerful about the film, first of all, is the filmmaking of just these long Steadicam shots following the characters. And then also, like you said, it doesn't try to explain why. It just shows you what. And I think it's more powerful that way. And it doesn't try to sensationalize anything. It really is just a true depiction of something like this happening. And it's really one of his most profound pieces of work as a filmmaker. It's nothing like it. And like we said, it's a difficult watch, but in my opinion, it's essential viewing for the art of cinema.
Dude who plays Stacy Peralta in Lords of Dogtown.
Yeah, he's in it. Yeah,
he's in this movie.
With the yellow shirt.
Yeah,
the whole time, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
All right, next up, we have Tom Cruise, baby. Woo! You didn't think we were gonna put a Tom Cruise movie on it, did we?
Oh my God!
I'm only putting it on because still nobody talks about this movie. It's The Color of Money from Martin Scorsese. Martin Scorsese's most underappreciated piece of filmmaking. The Color of Money is a sequel to The Hustler, starring Paul Newman. This movie is so good. It's highly entertaining, but it's a great character study of three really interesting people, the power dynamics, the intersocial relationships, but also this really ends up being a great legacy sequel, essentially, before legacy sequel is even a term. And on top of that, Martin Scorsese's directing and filmmaking in this movie is so sublime. Sublime! Sublime! And sensational and creative and artistic and fucking groundbreaking. This is the kind of movie where you see shots and you're just like, how did he do that? How is he so good? It's amazing. And it's also incredibly rewatchable. And The Hustler was such a highly regarded and respected film. With The Color of Money, Scorsese honored that movie, but also gave audiences something completely different. And Paul Newman is phenomenal, winning an Oscar in this movie.
Next up, we have another Akira Kurosawa film. We have Ran. Came out in 1985. One of the last movies he made. And it's about medieval Japan, about this elderly warlord who retires, and he gives the inheritance to his three sons. However, it divides them and brings corruption among them. It's really a similar story to the prodigal son, the Bible story about one son demanding inheritance and leaving and coming back, and sort of being one son's the only one that can really put the family back together because he leaves, he's banished. But the other two become so corrupt with the power that only he can save them and save the family and keep it intact.
It's a loose adaptation of King Lear as well. And it's a great tragedy, but also an epic war movie as well. And the visuals are so stunning. The colors are remarkable to behold. Kurosawa's directing is otherworldly. He really is possibly the greatest master filmmaker in history, and this is a great testament to that.
Greatest master filmmaker. You sound like me over there. Lots of adjectives.
So many adjectives. Yeah, we're 2.5 hours in. It's getting to be that time. But Ran is essential viewing if you're getting into Kurosawa films, for sure. Next up, we have an underrated and underappreciated Orson Welles film, Touch of Evil, which he directed and starred in, about a detective investigating a bombing in the city. This film famously opens with one of the great wonders in film history, showcasing the opening of the film. I believe it's like a 7-minute long take, showcasing the explosion, which will be the catalyst of the film. He also does double duty, acting as a great lead actor in the film. Wonderful film noir, mystery, intrigue, great shocking incidents and surprises. Touch of Evil is a masterful piece of filmmaking from the Wonder Kid, Orson Welles.
All right, let's talk about a film from 1969 next. Number 10, we have Kes.
I'm already crying.
About this young boy who's got a bit of a troubled past, and he's got, he's gets in trouble here and there, and he ends up having and spending a lot of free time raising his bird that he names Kes. Kestrel.
There we go.
Named Kes.
Oh, I thought it was a hawk. It's a kestrel.
It's a kestrel.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. It's like a little hawk.
This movie is, in my opinion, the greatest coming-of-age film. It's a tough watch because the boy, he faces abuse at home, and then he faces abuse at school from the other students. And he's an outsider everywhere. And in bonding with this hawk, this kestrel, he found injured and heals up and starts training, he finally has bonded with something in the world. And then that poses the risk of, what if he loses it? What if it's taken away from him? It's all he has. And it's really an absolutely remarkable performance from the young actor who plays the lead in this movie. He carries the film. And Ken Loach, the great UK filmmaker, made this movie. But my God, this movie, it's in my opinion, one of the most powerful films on this entire list. And you'll never watch a coming of age movie as that is as strong, as impactful as Kes is.
All right, let's go to a film that Anthony showed me like 15 years ago.
It was a long fucking time
Anthony's
ago.
punching the air again. I think we still lived in Waltham when we watched this back in Massachusetts.
This is during my movie dungeon times.
Anthony's movie dungeon.
Netflix by
He
mail.
would just show me all these international movies that I'd never heard of. And I'd be like, all right, cool. Then I'd go play guitar. So Bullhead came out in 2011, starring Matthias Schoenaerts, who we talked about earlier.
One of the best actors that nobody talks about right now.
He's really great in this film. He plays a cattle farmer who also is constantly juicing himself up with steroids and hormones. And so he's sort of a reflection of his cattle himself. Yeah. And directed by Michael Roscom. However, things get wary when he's approached by a veterinarian to make a shady deal with a beef trader.
Yeah. It's an incredible film. I just remember I saw it because I thought the trailer was so fascinating. And this was early days for us really watching a ton of international films. And this is a really powerful piece of filmmaking. It's about violence. It's about strength. It's about tragedy. And it's about choice. And Schoenhart's, we're saying his name wrong. I can't remember. Schoenhart's, I think is how you say it. He's really a force to be reckoned with in the world of cinema. And he's had a couple shots at big movies. I'm not sure that he's really taken shape in America, but he is that rare international actor who can do an American accent perfectly. He's in The Drop, does a great American accent. In the Red Sparrow, he does a British accent. He really has an incredible knack for language. Even some of the greatest actors on the international scene, like someone like Marion Cotillard, she's amazing in Inception and stuff like that, but she can't do the American accent. It's so rare for even someone as talented as she is to be able to pull that off, he can do it perfectly. And I think that he has such a range of talent, and he's in Far From the Madding Crowd, so he's done romance, he's done drama, he's done action with Red Sparrow. I think he's just a fascinating actor, one of my favorite working today. But Bullhead was this big moment. It's an incredible piece of Belgian filmmaking too. Like, out of that country, this is one of the best ones this century.
Well, Inception, I always interpret her as being French anyways.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
because their kid's named Philippa.
Philippa!
Yeah.
Philippa!
So quit being a jerk.
What's the other kid's name?
Steven.
Steve. I'm just saying, like, that was an example.
No, I know.
Marion Cotillard is one of the best actors alive.
Apparently not, according to you.
But it's hard to do an American accent, and somehow he can. Somehow he can.
Let's move on to number 8 on our list from 1965, Dr. Zhivago. It's a David Lean film, so we might as well let Anthony chat about it.
This is
based. Look at him, he's giddy. He's giddy.
This is based on the novel of the same name, and it's an incredible film about the Russian Revolution. And Omar Sharif, who plays Ali in Lawrence of Arabia, is the lead in this film. It's a masterwork. It's a huge epic. It's about a tumultuous time in that country, and him dealing with the change in climate, the change in violence, military forces, the government changing, and he's trying to do what he can to help others while also struggling with love in marriage and survival. He's desperately in love with this woman, and people all over the country are dying, and times are difficult for everyone. There's civic unrest, there's famine, there's war, there's violence. He comes from a great family. Things were once beautiful for him in the world he lived in, but everything's changed. And it's an incredible piece of filmmaking from David Lean. I think that Dr. Zhivago is essential viewing for any fan of film. Absolutely have to watch it.
Number 7 on our list, we have The Red Shoes, which came out in 1948, arguably one of the best films ever made, just when it comes to filmmaking, the sets, the production design, just going through several different cities. We're in London, we're in Paris, we're all over the place. And just the incredible wardrobe of the 1940s, where everyone looked so incredible and dolled up and clean cut, and you just want to go to that era and live there or just to visit what it was like back then. And just incredible dance numbers, massive amounts of production design, extras, really sensational filmmaking, and of course, Red Shoes.
It's Michael Powell and Pressburger, who made Black Narcissus, which we talked about earlier. Medium format film, 70 millimeter, massive sets and incredible use of matte paintings, and it has the show-stopping dance sequence halfway through the film, which is just some of the best pure filmmaking in history, and still holds up. I saw this in theaters at Vidiot's earlier this year, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Do you know who owns the Red Shoes?
Martin Scorsese does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice, yeah. Man. Nice.
He owns the Red Shoes, although he has it on loan at a museum.
So you saw the video recently?
Yeah. Of course we're film people. But I got into the Red Shoes because he recommended it. When he joined Letterboxd, he put it on his top 15.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And I was like, okay, I got to watch this. And I watched it 3 times in a year. And the third time was in theaters at Vidiot's. And it's an amazing film. And I was absolutely floored by it. Every time I watch it, I'm just absolutely destroyed by it. It's incredible cinema accomplishment.
Next up, at number 6, we have another Pavel Pawlowski film. We have Cold War, which came out in 2018. This was a big hit back when it came out. Did it win an Oscar? Or
no, but he was nominated for Best Director, which is super rare for an international director. For them to get nominated as director, that hardly ever happens. And Cold War is an amazing film about 2 characters who fall in love during turbulent times in their country, and they're essentially separated. It's the Cold War in Poland. One's a dancer, singer, performer, and the other is a producer, and they completely go in different directions. Also, they're kind of forced based upon military invasion to never really be together, and the filmmaking on display in Cold War, it's nothing short of revelatory. This movie came out in 2018, but when I watch this movie, it feels like I'm being transported to the 1960s or the 1950s with the filmmaking of that era. And he really... So Pawlowski, he made a few films before Ida. He did Ida. But his other films, they were kind of just decent contemporary romances and dramas. But then with Ida, he completely changed his filmmaking style, black and white, classical filmmaking, long shots, wides, really simplifying it. And then with Cold War, he doubled down on that and crafted some of the most remarkable visuals I've seen in recent memory. If you haven't seen Cold War, highly recommend checking it out. It's an Amazon Prime film, so you can watch it for free on Prime. They released it. And it's just a masterclass in filmmaking.
Moving on to number 5 on our list. This is a movie Anthony showed me a while ago as well. Romanian film. 4 months, 3 weeks, 2 days. This is about this young woman who she's pregnant, an unwanted pregnancy, and she gets an illegal abortion. She's trying to get an illegal abortion in Romania during this communist regime. The brutal Ceausescu communist regime is in place. Birth control is illegal, and abortion is a crime punishable by death. So she's trying to get this pregnancy. She hasn't even told the father of the baby.
Yeah.
I mean, she's trying to get this abortion done.
And it's great realism, handheld camera work, long takes. And it's about her friend who's another student at college. She has this plan. There's this underground guy who does abortions. And so the plan is to meet with him, pay him so he can carry out the abortion. However, it takes a harsh turn, and we don't want to spoil it because it's just so powerful what happens in the narrative. But it is really one of the great films of the century. 4 months, 3 weeks, 2 days. It's a very relevant topic, but it's done with great nuance and levity, and it's just a remarkable piece of acting, writing, and directing from Romania. Next up, we have at number 4. We've broken into the top 5 with Les Trous, in English, The Hole, which is a prison film about a prison break. This is a remarkable French film. Came out all the way back in, bear with me 1 second, 1960. 1960, an incredible film. This is an 8.5 on IMDb and a 4.4 on Letterboxd. And this is actually based upon a true story of 5 men who attempted a prison break in France. And one of the lead actors is actually one of the guys who did carry out the prison break for real. This is a remarkable piece of filmmaking and acting. It's about these 4 guys have been sharing a prison cell for a long time now. They all have huge lengths of a sentence to serve. Instead, they're all like, they've crafted this plan to break out. However, a wrench is thrown in that plan when a new guy is brought into their cell because his cell is being repaired. It's now they're like, they've been planning this thing, but now there's this new guy here. Should they tell him what they're planning or should they not? They eventually tell him he wants to join them, and so the 5 of them start carrying out this huge dig through the basements, walls, floors, and structures and foundations of the prison. And it is incredibly suspenseful, thrilling, brutal, incredibly authentic, and one of the most pulse-pounding thrillers I've ever seen. And somehow, Becker, the director, managed to make it so incredibly tense without a single note of music. There's no music in the film except for the credits. And you're just waiting at the edge of your seat to see what happens next.
Nice. All right, top 3, baby.
Let's go!
Number 3, it's a film we brought up quite a bit because we want people to see this as often as possible. We're talking about, from William Friedkin, 1977, his film Sorcerer, starring Roy Scheider. This movie is so epic, and I went into it knowing nothing about it, expecting it to be about wizards, and it's not. It's nothing to do with wizards. There is some sort of supernatural quality maybe going on. Spiritual nature.
Yeah.
But it's about these guys in this remote part of Latin America so Roy Schneider, he's the main character, you could say. He's escaped a past where he's committed a murder, and he's trying to hide low and just live life secretly, and he gets roped into a deal where him and 3 other people have to drive these trucks and transport nitroglycerin across dangerous landscapes. Not only is it nitroglycerin, but it's insanely sensitive to touch and can blow up at any second. So they have them in these boxes and these special hay sacks on the back of these big-ass trucks that they have to drive so far across intense landscapes, up mountains, down winding roads, on cliff sides, across bridges, over rivers, bridges that are so old you don't even know when they were built. It's high octane, so nonstop action, so stressful and insanely entertaining. It leaves you, you're on the edge of the seat to the point where you're almost floating in midair. It's that good of a movie. It's phenomenal. Phenomenal.
I like
film,
that.
with a great ending too.
Oh my god, it's so good, man. It's so the bridge scene, man. There's nothing like it.
It's epic.
And they shot it in these locations for real. They're in the jungle, man. It was a rough shoot, I bet. All right, we're in the top 2 now.
Of course, we're in Japan for both.
Our first Japanese movie on the list at number 2.
It's not
Our first Japanese movie in the top 2.
Like 10, bro.
Sorry, in the top 2. At number 2, we have another Akira Kurosawa film. This time, High and Low, starring Toshiro Mifune, one of his regulars. This is the quintessential kidnapping ransom movie. And it's so well directed, so well written, and so well acted. There's nothing like it. It is an absolute perfect piece of filmmaking. Really is one of the greatest films of all time. In our opinion, it's top 15, maybe top 10 easily. Easily. And Toshiro Mifune plays, he's a wealthy industrialist who runs a shoemaking company. And he has this plan. He's getting a bunch of people to help him put together a chunk of money to basically buy executive charge in the company. He's going to buy out his competition in the company so that he can control what his company does and the business practices, because he's been struggling with the executive board, and they're all differences of opinion. So he's got this plan. He's going to take this big chunk of money. He's going to gain control of his company finally. However, while this is happening, the son of his driver is kidnapped. Now, the boy was kidnapped because the kidnapper thought it was Toshiro Mifune's son, thinking that he would pay a huge ransom because he's this wealthy guy. And so the kidnapper took the wrong kid. However, there comes the moral dilemma. Does Mifune's character pay the ransom of this boy who's not his son? That's the moral right thing to do. Or should he put him in his family first and carry out his plan with his company? And it is an absolute thrill ride. The acting is so good. And Akira Kurosawa, outside of traditional territory for many of his films, making this taut, tight, propulsive, and incredibly suspenseful and dramatic thriller. There really is nothing like High and Low. It is an all-timer. All-timer.
All right, let's talk about an all-time film right now. Harakiri from 1962, a masterpiece from Masaki Kobayashi. We watched this on Discord last year. We showed it to a bunch of people. We had a watch party, and it was really fantastic. I don't think anyone had seen it before, and we were so excited to share it with everyone. And this is a really incredible film. It's got a great twist as well, and it's about this samurai who goes to a clan's court to commit seppuku in their courtyard, which is seppuku is a respectful suicide. Mm-hmm. However, they are very dismissive of him because of a previous samurai who came to commit seppuku, who they tricked into doing with a bamboo sword.
So what happens is a bunch of poor samurai are saying they're going to commit suicide so that the clans take pity on them and take them into their clan. Mm-hmm. So it's become like this new thing that a lot of samurais are doing. So all the clans are suspicious of anyone who's claiming to do it.
And so the previous one who actually did it with the bamboo sword suffered a brutal suicide. And I won't spoil the twist of what happens, but it's all connected. And this film is just remarkable filmmaking, great storytelling. It's so patient. It's tragic. And, of course, we have a great samurai battle at the end.
Harakiri is the highest-rated film on Letterboxd.
Is it really?
It's a 4.7 on Letterboxd, the only film on the platform to have that rating. And it deserves that. And honestly, it's because of Letterboxd that I discovered this film a few years ago. And after watching it a few times now, it is easily one of my favorite films. It's probably, I gotta say, Harakiri might be the greatest screenplay ever written. It's not just a great movie, but it's an unbelievably perfect script and story and narrative. And it's filled with twists and turns. highly memorable characters, incredible situations, and a great speculative look at humanity and its ups and downs and its flaws. And it combines all of that with, like you said, an incredible finale, but also a couple of great samurai fights that still stand the test of time as some of the most visually interesting moments in film history. Harakiri, it really is, it's possibly the greatest film ever made. And it still hasn't been seen all over the world by everyone yet, so we want to shout on every rooftop.
And strap everyone to a chair and watch Harakiri.
Go watch Harakiri right now.
All right. Wow, that wraps our 100 greatest movies you've never seen before.
Well
Goodness,
done.
I'm exhausted. That was almost 3 hours,
Yeah,
man.
man, that's a good one.
Oh, I need some lunch.
Oh, yeah, I need some food.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Be sure to become a patron today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Leave those 5-star ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple. And take care, everybody.
See you next time.
This episode was brought to you by our chosen one patrons, Jacob Kostler and Nicholas Martin. Thanks so much, boys. Raiders of the Lost Podcast is a mirror image production. Sound mixing done by Jacob Kostler. Opening music by Chase Jackson.